Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:30. Welcome to the Eastpointe City Council special meeting, our work session on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. We're going to start with our roll call.
Councilman Curley,
Here, Eastpointe.
Councilman DeMonico,
Here, Eastpointe.
Councilwoman Lucido,
Here, Eastpointe.
Councilwoman Moore,
Here, Eastpointe.
and Mayor Owens.
Here at Eastpointe. Good evening, Mr. Gatson. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Next, we will be opening up the first hearing of the public. We don't have a second one at a special session, a special meeting. So now's the opening of the first hearing of the public. Mr. Gatson, let me know who's ready at this time.
All right. I am looking. At this time, I see no hands raised and nothing in the chat room at the moment.
Okay, thank you. The first hearing of the public is now closed. We're going to go ahead into new business, which is the pension bonding discussion. Good evening, Ms. Doom. Good evening, Director of Finance, Mr. Blum. Did you want to start this, Mr. Blum, or Ms. Doom, whichever one?
Mr. Blum would like to start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You should have received the backup information for tonight. The first item is a schedule. It just shows the combined pension and Opeb contributions over the years. But you also see that it has been growing substantially. There are new state requirements that we have the pension funded, in our case, by about 2031, 2032. And we have a pension that's currently only 51% funded. In addition, we have the retiree healthcare, which is called Opeb. That runs us, it's been running a little over 2 million a year. That is going to climb to closer to 3 million a year as we have to get that funded. So we're looking at two ways to try to reduce that. Any amount over 6 million combined is hard to actually fund with our revenue stream. And you can see that it's climbing to, by 2026, it's over 10 million. Actually, if you take it out to 2031, it's going to be about 12.5 million. We just don't have that kind of money. We've made changes to the employee pensions, and it has had some impact, but not enough. So we'd really like to take a look at doing the pension bond. There's a couple more schedules that break down pension and Opeb separately if you want to look at that. But I included some scenarios for doing a pension bond. The last report had us with a $46 million shortfall. And if we were to get to even 80% funded, it would take about $29–30 million to get to that level. So I've got a $40 million example and a $25 million example. All I really need from council is a consensus that this is something that you guys would be willing to do. The next steps, if you agree, would be I need to go out and get bond counsel and a municipal financial advisor. Those are the two entities that would actually handle the bond and get that taken care of. But I don't want to proceed going out with requests for bids and all that if council's not in favor of making this move. So that's really all I want to discuss tonight is council in favor of it and should I proceed?
Council.
So, Mr. Blum.
Yes.
So I guess my question, I don't know, maybe I don't understand this right. So you're expecting it to increase every year because we're going to have more people collecting, correct?
No, there's a state mandate that it must be, they put it out a couple years ago that we had to be fully funded within, it was like a 20-year period when they put it out. We're still looking at another about 12 right now. So every year, the amount of time we have to fund has been decreasing. And unless we've been keeping pace with earnings to make that money up, we will never get caught up on that. So it's
So
really a
I-
state mandate. It has nothing to do with our liability, an increase in pension cost, any of that. It's how fast we have to get the pension funded.
So my question is that, so let's say we did take this out to bond and we were paying the $3 million a year payment to the
Yep.
bond, correct? So let's say we were doing that. Would we also be making payments to the new people that are like investing in, and how much would that cost be?
Right now, the new hires come in that are kind of a percentage of payroll. That runs us about 50,000 a year right now. As more people retire and more new people come on board, that will increase. We will never eliminate a pension payment. It's just trying to mitigate how large it is.
Because that's my concern, is that we're going to get to the point where we're paying, like right now, how much are we paying per year right now towards it?
For the pension itself,
About 5 million, 5.8
it's right
million?
around 5 million, but you'll see that it's going to grow fairly quickly to about 6.5 by 2025. So the idea is that we would bond it out, get a fixed payment over 20 years instead of trying to get this thing paid in the next 12. We would be stretching our payments out. It's kind of the reverse of refinancing your mortgage. We're actually
No, I understand that, but I'm just worried about like adding on new payments on top of that, like just this being an ongoing cycle and then just building up another large amount while we're trying to pay off this bond for the
Yeah.
existing amount.
And that's one of the reasons we've sort of delayed on this one. I mean, there's still the possibility that, we borrow $30 million, we put it into the pension system, and the next day another 2008 collapse happens.
Right.
Now we've got a bond payment and a pension payment. But the reality is we cannot afford the pension payments that are staring us in the face. We just do not have that kind of money on an annual basis. So we've got to do something to be able to make those payments. There's definitely risk in doing the bonding, but I think it's less than not doing anything.
It's just that we're paying so much in interest too. I mean, we're looking at, a lot of interest.
Yep.
And you think 4.5% is the lowest rate we would be able to get?
The federal government changed it that municipal bonds are not tax exempt anymore. They're now taxable. So the interest rate is higher. The
Okay.
last, the one that was just done by the county where they refinanced came in at 4.5 or 4.25, something like that. So in this particular market, that seems reasonable.
That's
I
all
had
I
a
have.
question. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I had a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks on here for the last almost 6 years, we didn't make a contribution in OPEB or our pension. Is that correct?
No, we've been making the contributions. The
I'm
column
looking
on the far right is what we actually contributed.
Right, but it says in 2002.
Those are future years at the bottom.
I mean, in the past, I'm looking at.
Oh, in the past, right. We were not required to make any contributions into OPEB prior to 2006, 7. We basically were on a pay-as-you-go. And then prior to that on the pension side, we actually were overfunded at one point and we had no required contribution.
Okay, how do we get overfunded, then get underfunded? Is it because of the no contributions that we had to make? I guess I don't understand how you don't fund a pension. So all pensions have to be funded all
Yeah,
the time.
at one point we were 136% funded. But we had a stagnant market during the 2000s. You had the market collapse in 2008.
Mhm.
There were changes in the pension benefits back in the 90s. It actually came, the liability showed up during the 2000s. So there was a steady decline from 2002 till today. And now we're just suffering the consequences.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm wondering why when we were overfunded, we didn't put that money somewhere and invest it to where we could have had that money saved up and interest made and now we're borrowing money now.
Yep. No, I know. I'm as frustrated as you.
You wasn't the director at the time, so you're not mad about it, huh?
No.
I don't know who tenor that was under, but wow. Let me see. Now you got a 40 million and a 25 million. Now, why did you give us those two numbers and not stick with the 25 million? Why did you give us a higher bond of 40
Just
million?
to give council a sense of what the difference would be. We could bond the full 46 million out and wipe out the liability, the unfunded liability. It'd be probably about 3.5 million a year.
Okay.
The only thing is the more we borrow, the less capacity we have. Right now, our assessed value for the city is 742 million. We're allowed to have outstanding bond equal to 10% of our assessed value. So if you subtract out what we owe on the city hall, we could borrow up to $71.5 million right now, but that would be our limit on our debt capacity.
Yeah, Madam Mayor?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Explain to us, there's 25 people watching, so somebody may not know what we're talking about, being fully funded or 60% fully funded or funded. What's the advantage of being fully funded and what's that all about?
If we were fully funded, the advantage is, first of all, we'd have the money that was being invested and earning the return that it's supposed to actually pay for the benefits. It wouldn't be coming out of current revenues. With any unfunded liability, we are required to pay that down, which is what we're seeing. Our normal cost for pension is about $500,000 a year. Everything in excess of that is actually us paying down the unfunded liability. So it's like running up your credit card bill. You keep paying the minimum and not paying it down, and eventually you get stuck paying it off.
Yeah, and bottom line, you said at your beginning of your presentation that the state is mandating that we're supposed to be fully funded anyway. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
And in your own opinion, you have a right to give your opinion. Why do you think the state did that?
Because underfunded pensions was leading to a lot of the municipal failures back when they had emergency managers. And they're just forcing cities to do something about their obligations, either fund them or reduce them.
Okay, and that's what we're talking about tonight.
Yep.
Mr. Blum, do you know how many, there's a lot of cities in a similar situation, right? Like we're not complete outlier here, right?
We're not at the bottom of the list, but we are in the bottom 10% of Michigan municipalities as far as percent funded. The majority of cities are 60 to 80%. There's quite a few over 80% funded. We are I'd have to go back to the list. They put one out every year, but we are definitely in the bottom 10% of Michigan cities as far as percent funded on our pensions.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send us that list, that would be good. I'd just be interested to see how things are going in other cities too.
Yep.
But then, so just to be clear here, if we did let's just use the 40 million example. We'd borrow that 40 million and just put it right into the pension and OPEB, right?
Correct.
And then to pay off that bond is a little over $3 million a year. Yeah, until 2041.
Yep.
And right now, if I'm looking, let's see, so 2020 we put $2.5 million into OPEB and like $4.5 million. So it's $6 million. So we paid $7 million then in 2020. So I guess we'd have a $4 million difference, and would we still need to put we probably need to put that into pension and OPEB still, that amount, like we wouldn't, or would we just only use this 40 million for the next however many years? You know what I'm asking?
There would still be some contribution, but my estimate is it would drop to about $1 million a year in addition to the bond payment. So what it would do is instead of having this payment to MERS continue to climb year after year, it would actually level it out at about a $4 million mark, which is actually manageable.
Okay, interesting.
Madam Mayor, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess my question is, I don't know, but now I lost my train of thought here. Sorry. So is your recommendation is that we consider putting this out to bond?
Yes.
And my other question is, for the City Hall bond, how many years do we have left remaining on that?
Well, give me a second. I'll give you an exact answer. The City Hall bond will be paid off in 2032.
Okay. And what's our payment on the City Hall bond?
We pay $415,000 a year.
I had a question, Mr. Blum. I know we have someone that does our, our finances as far as put things where we can gain interest. Now, what if because I know we do bonds, and right here I'm looking at this $40 million bond, and it's saying we're actually gaining them 21 million in interest. Is there any way we can borrow some money, get a bond and gain some interest where we're getting that money and we can put it in a pension ourselves, where we're not borrowing money, owing them, an extra 20 million, but how do we pay ourselves? You know what I'm saying? Borrow money, gain interest on that money where we can pay ourselves out and not owe all this money.
Yeah, the only way we're going to generate any money to put into the pension is if we sold something.
Okay.
And there's nothing excess.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. I would hate to we borrow some money and then they're gaining $20 million and we can make that ourselves.
Yep.
And we don't have anything we could sell in order to do this.
Correct.
Councilman?
Sure. Actually, so yeah, one question I had maybe on that note. So since you said we pay maybe an extra $1 million above that 3 million, so we're looking at a 4 million payment, and instead of this last year we paid 7, roughly. Let's just use estimates at this moment. So there's a 3 million difference. Can we? You don't have to pay the exact amount, right? We can overpay. Can we pay a little more in the first years to reduce the amount of interest we're paying? Right, we could adjust that schedule a little bit too if we wanted to try.
Or we can pay the extra into MERS and pay that down quicker. And there would, even at 40 million, we'd still have a $6 million unfunded liability. Yeah. But if we actually floated a bond, we do not have the ability to pay the bond off early or pay extra on the bond. Each bond has a coupon that's called. Once a year, there's a payment made with the interest. So, if we didn't fully fund it, we could pay the extra into MERS and pay that piece down quicker, but you can't pay the bonds off. It's not like you can make an extra payment on your mortgage and save some interest. You can't do that with bonds.
Can you shorten the length of it?
We can do the bond at any time frame that we wish to do. That's what the municipal financial advisors and the bond councils would work with us on. They would actually come back with a recommendation of actually how much we should borrow and what the length should be. council have many opportunities to say yes or no on this, even if we proceed tonight.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, I mean, I think in my opinion, I think we kind of don't have another choice except for to move forward with bonding this out. I'm not sure if I would want to bond all of it out because like Councilman DeMonico was saying, we might be able to pay less interest in the next couple of years, put more into than what our payments would be. Like if you were going with the 25 million example you gave us, our payments would only be 2 million a year compared to 3 million. So we might be able to pay extra, so we're paying less interest on that over the next couple of years.
Correct.
So that's probably where my head would be, but I don't know if you really need that decision yet tonight. So, but yeah, I think moving forward, I don't think.
So that's what the municipal financial advisor would advise us on, is what the right approach would be.
Okay. So this is just a discussion. You don't need a final decision tonight. Is that what you're saying?
I guess I'd like to know that council's in favor of doing the bond so that I can proceed with putting out for bid for the bond counsel and the municipal financial advisor. But no, it doesn't have to be done tonight. We could wait for the next meeting.
Okay. Council.
I think
Councilman,
that,
Councilman DeMonico.
I think personally, I'd like to think about it a little more, but I wouldn't be opposed to, making a decision one way or the other shortly. I don't know how I'd feel tonight.
I think we could do that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we got another week or so for the next meeting. So thank you for talking about this. I think you're on another one. So just hold tight.
Madam Mayor, I agree that we could wait till the 6th of April. This is an incredible decision to make, and I think all 5 of us would like to take a look at it. And I know we're going to get recommendation, but give us 2 weeks to think about it and then put it on the agenda for a decision on the 6th.
And feel free to shoot me any questions over the next couple of weeks.
That sounds good. I wish we could have, I know we have a work session on fee schedules. I wish we could have a work session on the pension and the Opeb and things like that, and a better understanding, because we are not finance directors, Mr. Blum. So so if you can take some time with us, each and every one of us, to let us know if y'all have a question, that we can have that one-on-one with you.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Next item is retiree healthcare change discussion. Is this you too, Mr. Blum?
Well, I'm starting it off.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, as we talked about having problems funding pension, the retiree healthcare cost is going up as well. And we had been basically paying the premiums as they came in, and we now have to start funding it at a higher rate than the premiums. It's kind of a tag team with the bonding of the pension. We're trying to reduce our total retiree cost between the two actions. We've worked with our healthcare not provider, but assistants, Manquin Vance, to work through some scenarios, and they're going to give a presentation now and kind of run through some changes to retiree healthcare. So I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly.
Good evening, Ms.
Can I
Councilman.
ask one question real quick before we go into that?
Yep.
So that the bond we were just talking about, that would only go on to, I thought we were splitting that between pension and Opeb. That would only be for pension.
It's only for pension, right?
Okay. The Opeb was in the middle of the pages, so I thought it was.
Yeah. Opeb's another $39 million problem.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it was Opeb and it was combined. It was pension and Opeb, and then you had two separate ones, pension and Opeb. So Opeb has nothing to do with it.
Not the bond. I'm trying to get our combined payments down to about $6 million a year between pension and Opeb. So
you're using the bond to pay for both.
Bonds going for pension. The retiree healthcare changes are going to focus on the Opeb. And we do have Brandon Fournier, our labor attorney, here to discuss the legalities of these changes. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pointer, is that who's speaking
Yep.
next? Okay.
No, Kimberly.
No, I was
Ms.
gonna,
Kimberly.
good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly and I work with Manquin Vance. I've been with the company quite a while now, and I'm the account director that works with the city of Eastpointe. So I work hand in hand with Randy and Danielle in the HR and finance departments, as well as we partner with labor attorneys, specifically Brandon, on this account when we review not only active, but also retiree healthcare. So our firm is a healthcare brokerage and consulting firm that was founded in 2005. We work exclusively with Michigan public sector employers. We support our clients in areas such as long and short-term strategies, retiree healthcare reviews, financial analysis, and just ongoing oversight of the employee healthcare programs. So that's a little bit about who we are, and we've been working with the city now just over a year, and we've been actively engaged with Randy and his team. First, we started with the active healthcare, and now we are engaged with the retiree healthcare. So I have a short presentation that I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. And again, it's just some, we worked collaboratively with Randy and Brandon to come up with some retiree healthcare options to present and to educate you on tonight. So I will, if you don't mind, share my screen now, if that's okay with everybody. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So let me just advance the screen here for a second. So again, Randy did a very good overview, kind of where the city of Eastpointe stands with regard to the underfunding of their overall pension and Opeb funds. And he also mentioned early in his presentation that the city hasn't fully recovered from the financial crisis of 2008 yet. So, and now we've got the COVID on top of it that's creating tremendous uncertainty for the city. Brandon can speak to some of the reasons why the city may be allowed to have some flexibility in their retiree healthcare. We'll defer to him in a moment. But our presentation tonight is going to include some alternatives with the assumption the city has the ability and the desire to change retiree healthcare plans based on costs. We're going to include both the pre-Medicare retirees, so those that are pre-65, post-65 Medicare retirees, and it will cover the current medical as well as prescription drug options. So then the high-level statistics here at the bottom is kind of where we just summarize. You have 64 total pre-Medicare contracts. So again, these are our retirees that are not 65 yet. We refer to them as pre-Medicare. We've got 168 Medicare members. So when we talk about members, we're actually counting what I call belly buttons, because it's a little bit different. When you're Medicare age, the carriers see if you and your spouse would normally be one contract. Once you reach Medicare age, they consider you two members. So instead of being one family unit, you're two individual members. So we have 168 Medicare members. And our 2021 projected cost for those retirees is $2,191,631. So that's our total spend, projected spend on just the retiree healthcare costs. And then to the right is just a summary of what Randy had presented previously when he was talking about bonding the pension and talking about OPEB. So before I move on to some more specific information, I was going to hand it over to Brandon. Brandon, if you want to just give a quick overview on what brought us here today and why we think we may have some flexibility to look at retiree healthcare changes.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you tonight?
Okay.
I think we've discussed this topic in the context of collective bargaining over the recent years. Kim has properly cited the Macomb County Supreme Court decision as the most operative legal change that allows us to consider these issues. So I'm going to just try to encapsulate it in a very short presentation. And if there are any questions, I can answer now or after the conclusion of the proposed outline that we've put together as a team. But historically speaking, retirement healthcare benefits were believed to be locked in based on the level of benefit that were in place in the contract at the time of retirement. That came to us from a case from the Sixth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals known as the Yardman inference, which had been in place since the late 1980s. That was actually a UAW case. And the court held then that the benefits were derived from the collective bargaining agreement in effect at the time of retirement. Also tie-barred to the Great Recession during that time when private corporations were experiencing severe financial strain and pressure, they started to challenge the yard man standards. And ultimately, the United States Supreme Court overturned that decision in what became known as the Tackett case, which was a federal Supreme Court decision, which said that collective bargaining agreements have a durational period, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and any promise for retirement health care with certain exceptions is tie-barred to the length of those agreements. So when those contracts expire, the right for the continuation of those benefits is abridged based on the expiration of the contract. That decision was about 5 years ago. There were a number of challenges in the state of Michigan after that case because of federalism. The decision was not binding on public sectors in the state of Michigan. There was some attempts to make alterations and changes, which included most notably in our local area, Harper Woods. They had a case that went to the Court of Appeals that ultimately settled. Macomb County decided to take their change of benefit case all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court a few years ago. And the Michigan Supreme Court approved 4-3 on a close decision that the Tackett principles apply also in the state of Michigan for public sector labor unions and collective bargaining agreements. So essentially what that means is once the respective collective bargaining agreements expired, the employer has certain rights to modify or review healthcare benefits for retirees. We have seen a number of communities over the last 12 to 18 months begin to make changes consistent with that decision by the Michigan Supreme Court. There are a few exceptions to the ability to make changes with contract language, but needless to say, the law in Michigan changed the landscape dramatically and allowed for these issues to be decided and considered before you this evening.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay.
I think so, Brandon.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the rest of my presentation then is just going to give a summary of where the retirees you have enrolled in healthcare today stand. So I'll go to the next page. And this is a high level overview of our two columns. So on the left, we've got our pre-Medicare or pre-65 retirees, and I'll walk through that in a minute. And on the right side, we have our post-65 retiree members. So there's some words here on the page that you may not recognize, but basically what we've done is we've split out by enrollment, how many retirees do we have in each one of the medical plans offered? So we've got pre-Medicare or pre-65 retirees. So let's focus on those columns first. So from a medical perspective, we've got 41 individuals what is called the Blue Cross Blue Shield Community Blue 2. So where you see CB2, that means Community Blue 2. And then down at the bottom under the graph, you'll see we've got a description of what those benefit summaries actually look like, or small, which I'll review in a minute. Then we've got 11 individuals or 11 contracts in what's called the Community Blue 4. We've got 7 in the modified Community Blue 4 and 5 contracts in the Simply Blue 3000. Then we have various members that have different prescription drug card copays. So they might be enrolled in the CB2 plan or the CB4 plan, but they have varying prescription drug card copays. So when we look where it says RX, there's the first one is a 5, 15, 30 prescription drug card. So when you see 3 tiers like that, what it means is you've got a $5 copay for generic drugs, $15 copay for preferred brand name drugs, and a $30 copay for non-preferred drugs. It's what we call a 3-tier drug program. And you'll see then the next one says 15-30. So we've got 14 contracts that are in, they pay $15 for a generic, and they pay $30 for a brand, regardless of whether it's a preferred brand or a non-preferred brand. That's what we call a 2-tier drug card. And then you'll see the varying others. We've got the next 3 are 3-tier prescriptions. So they either pay $5, $40, $80. If the fourth one down says $20 for generic, $60 for a preferred brand, and 50% copay for non-preferred. And then the very last one is associated with the Simply Blue 3000, which the 3rd-tier drug is 50%, or excuse me, all those drug copays are after the deductible is met. Okay, so it's a little confusing, and certainly we can spend more time talking about that further on in the presentation, but the description down below then tells you if I'm somebody that's enrolled in the CB2 plan, and that's where I'm going to focus my attention for the pre-65 retirees at this point. We've got 41 individuals enrolled in this program. So that means they have on an annual basis, they have a $100 annual deductible. After their deductible is met, the Blue Cross insurance program pays 90% of the cost. They pay 10% of the cost. But that 10% has a max. That's what we call the co-insurance maximum. So if someone has a catastrophic claim, yes, they're responsible for paying 10% of that claim, but they only pay 10% until they reach $500. Okay, so that's what the maximum means. The CB4 plan then follows suit. So the CB4 plan has a $500 deductible. The plan pays 80%, the member pays 20%, and their maximum co-insurance is $1,500. Then we have our modified CB4, which is a $750 deductible, 80%, 20% co-insurance, and a $1,500 co-insurance max. And then the very last plan available would be a plan which we call a high deductible health plan with HSA. So our active employees have this plan, and some of our pre-Medicare retirees have this plan now too. It's a plan that has a large front-end deductible. Everything goes towards that deductible until the deductible is met. And then after the deductible is met, there's no co-insurance. The plan pays 100%. Okay. So I know it can be a little confusing, but that's why I put it here on this page for reference so we can refer back to it as you have questions. Then when we move over to the post-65 retirees. Now these retirees are on a fully insured product with Blue Cross called Medicare Advantage. So out in the open market, you might have friends or family members that are over 65 that have purchased one of these Medicare Advantage plans from Blue Cross or HAP or any number of vendors that are out there. And they are available on an individual basis. But the program that the city buys is a group contract. So there's no scary things associated with these Medicare Advantage plans like the dreaded donut hole that you hear elderly folks talk about when with regard to their prescription drug coverage. That doesn't exist on the group plan that's available through the city. The retirees simply pay their associated RX copays throughout the calendar year. But when we look at the enrollment here, we have 165 members enrolled in the medical plan that has a $100 deductible. Most of them are on the RX card that you see there. It's a 5 or 6 tier drug, 2, 4, 5 tier drug card. They pay $2. There's a preferred and non-preferred brand name, as well as not preferred and non-preferred generic copays as well. But you'll see it's $2 for generic, $15 for preferred brand, $30 for non-preferred brand or specialty drugs. So with that said, when we look at options, we're going to talk about where our cost savings are coming from and which retirees this will affect. And we'll get to that slide in just a moment. But when I go to this slide, we help many clients across the full continuum with retiree healthcare. Some that are just, entering and they want to make small changes. Some that want to change insurance carriers altogether to find some cost savings, and others that want to go all the way to the stipend option, which we have for you. But there's a brief list here of some of the clients that have recently made retiree healthcare changes. I know that Brandon mentioned some that actually had some legal cases associated with them, but then some others have been successful in just making changes without having any legal action. So you'll see a list here. So we've got several clients that have recently aligned their active and retiree healthcare plans, which means the retirees have the same plan basically as the active employees. So City of Southfield, City of Hazel Park, and Grosse Pointe Shores. We've got the City of Harper Woods who have reduced retiree benefits, not to the same level as actives, but they were successful in reducing them some, and then actually even getting to a stipend option. It's kind of a hybrid. They reduce some benefits to the same level as actives, and then others will receive a stipend when they retire. Charge retirees a contribution. Grosse Pointe Shores, believe it or not, you think, they're a very well-to-do community, but they needed to make some savings or find some savings on their retiree health care plan, and they recently introduced contributions to their retirees. And then, of course, the big ones are those that have gone to a full stipend. So they've said, we're not going to administer retiree health care anymore. We're just going to give you a stipend each month, and then retiree, you're going to go on your own, and you're going to find health care coverage on the individual market, such as City of Detroit, City of Wayne, Wayne County, our client, City of Inkster, has also did this a few years back. So again, this just gives you an idea of how many municipalities are actually looking at retiree healthcare and those that have been successful at making some changes. Each of our clients falls under a different point along this continuum. So depending on your philosophy, your financial position and history, we can work, we've worked with the city and we can work with, you to find an option that's acceptable for everyone. So now here's the meat and potatoes of the presentation. So everybody wants to know, well, what are we actually proposing? So we came together, and again, at the top, we're just illustrating how many contracts or members you have. So you'll see there in the gray bar across the top, we've got our pre-Medicare retirees. We've got 64, and the total cost on an annual basis is about $1.4 million. Our post-65 retirees, we've got 168 members on the Medicare Advantage plans with Blue Cross for about $768,000 for our total of $2,191,000 that I mentioned on the first page. So what are the alternatives and what do they look like? So we've got A and B. So the first alternative is assuming that we take, we'll tackle it in two buckets. So let's talk about the pre-65 first. So assuming we take the pre-65 retirees to the CB4 medical plan with a 540/80 RX. So what that means is we have, and I'll go back to the previous page with enrollment in a minute, but we have 41 pre-65 retirees that are not currently in the CB4 plan. They're in what's called the CB2 plan, and that was the plan that had the $100 deductible. So what we're proposing here is you take those 41 retirees and move them into the CB4 medical plan. So the CB4 medical plan would bring them in line with the rest of the pre-65 retirees, or most of them, that have a $500 deductible, an 80% coverage, which would require them to pay 20%. And then they would have a maximum out of pocket for their coinsurance of $1,500. Any pre-60 retiree that's currently on that plan or on the modified plan with a $750 deductible or on the $3,000 deductible would remain unchanged. So we're really talking about just those 41 people pre-Medicare that are on the CB2 plan that we illustrated on the first page. When we talk about Medicare folks, we would be talking about moving all 168 Medicare members to a plan that has a $750 deductible with a 20/60/50% prescription drug card copay. So the annual cost, if we did those two things with those members, would be $1,860,829. So the cost change would be about $330,000 annually, or a 15% savings on retiree health care. The second option is, what if we took all retirees to a stipend in lieu of city health care? So if we estimate for each pre-Medicare retiree, we would allow $400 for a single, $800 for a couple or two persons, so myself and a spouse, or $1,100 per family. If you're of Medicare age, you would get $250 per member per month. What would that cost the city on an annual basis? That would cost the city $1,050,000, which is an annual cost change of $1,141,000 over the current $2,191,000. The percent change of savings there is about 52%. So obviously that second option is far more intrusive to the retirees and a larger out of pocket for them, but it would provide the city with substantially lower savings, or larger, excuse me, not lower, larger savings. But it is the harder pill to swallow in this case. It gives you the most savings, but it's also the most intrusive. So really, alternative A is kind of where we're focusing our attention today, to see if we can make small changes that will still give us savings and be equitable to the retirees. And Randy, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything here at the end about some of the changes or some of the things that we've talked about that we don't have outlined today, but I just, those were the two recommendations that we were looking at most seriously. So we wanted to present that to you tonight and get some feedback from you and answer any questions that you had.
Yeah, we had looked at a few other alternatives. They just didn't generate enough savings to make it worth the headache. One thing with this is, like the bond, we don't have to get a decision tonight, but we need one fairly quick. any Medicare changes have to be agreed to early enough to get them in place for January 1st of 2022. And we are going to need some time to work on it. So while I'd like to get a response tonight, if it has to wait for another meeting to get a consensus of council, that's fine too. But I don't have anything else. I'll let you guys ask your questions.
Yes, and let me just add to that. So one of the things that obviously our office would be very involved with is the communication to the retiree population. And we would make sure that we started that communication very early. It wouldn't be something that we started in the fall for a January effective date. And as Randy mentioned, these proposed changes would be for January 1. And we would certainly make sure that we had all resources available to answer the retiree questions. Also, there would not be an insurance carrier change in this instance. So for example, anybody that's covered by Blue Cross today would be covered by Blue Cross tomorrow. The changes are simply in the amounts of the deductibles and the co-pays for the prescription drug insurance. So that would be the education process that we would focus on. We wouldn't have to focus on also integrating a insurance carrier change through this process.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if there was a way we could maybe get these slides emailed to us so we have a copy of them.
Yes.
And I would feel, once again, I do think that I'm willing to make the change, but if we could just do it at the next meeting so we have some time to like think about it and review these slides on our own, I think that I would appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, but we like to be prepared when we have presentations and have them before, so we can study them ourselves. But thank you. So I know you will send it to Mr. Blum and he'll send it to us.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'm happy if you want to outline questions. I'm happy to provide answers as they come in. We can document those and get official answers back to you as well, as whatever you need.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Mr. Blum, we'll be waiting on those that information, those documents for the presentation, and as well as her number as well. What's your last name? I'd like to be formal. Miss Kimberly, what's your last name?
My last name is Kulis, K-U-L, A as in apple, S as in Sam.
Okay. Miss Kulis, thank you.
Thank you.
We will let you get your number as well. We want to have questions with you personally as well about that.
Okay, great.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I may.
Yes,
I do
ma'am.
have one question. The stipend is what the city of Detroit went to, correct me if I'm wrong, after the bankruptcy, correct?
That is correct. So with now, we didn't personally work on the city of Detroit, but that is correct. Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I want to make sure that, there's many cities that are in different financial situations than you. The stipend is really something that, when people are really in dire straits, that's what they go to. It's up to the city of Eastpointe to decide, financially what they can afford with retiree healthcare. And to Randy's point, we're just trying to look at ways that we can help bring down those liabilities in the Opeb and still keep equitable benefits for the retirees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Thank you, Ms. Kulis, if I said it right. If I have, forgive me. And we'll be looking forward to getting information and speaking with you shortly about that sometime this week, hopefully. We're going to continue.
And I have one quick process question now, unless I'm missing something. I think this is a change we'd have to make individually with each collective bargaining agreement, each union, or is there something else to this?
No, actually, from my perspective, assuming the consensus of council is reached, we would probably take a deeper dive into the legal documents to make sure that there's no particular issues with any particular unit. But as an overall perspective, Councilman DeMonico, these folks are not represented by the unions once they retire. So this would be an action taken by the city council without engaging with the labor representatives of the active employees. But
those benefits are in the agreements though, right?
That is where they are derived from. But once an employee retires, they are no longer represented by that labor union. And
Sure.
most of these folks, there's about 200 to our 100 or so active employees. Most of them have been retired for quite some time and are receiving benefits from contracts that expired 10 or 15 years ago, if not longer.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman DeMonico. Thank you, Mr. Fournier, as well, coming tonight. Next item is item C, fee schedule review. Ms. Doom, did you want to start this?
I certainly can.
Okay.
We have, all of our departments have carefully analyzed their fee schedules, looked at what is necessary to help fund their department. As you know, the building department should be self-funded. And as Mr. Blum can tell you, it's definitely running in a negative. There are quite a few proposals that our building director has for you. But what I'd like to do, if we may, is we have a few that are a little bit smaller. And so I'd like to bring those out first and have our building director speak at the very last. So I would like to, at this point, have the police department go first. And after the police department is finished, we'll go on to public works. And we will, because the largest is the building department, we'll have them go last. So if our police department could start.
Sure.
Good evening,
Mayor and
Crystal. How are
Council.
you?
Good, how are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
You know, I just have a few changes. I had the opportunity, along with the rest of the administration, to review all the fees. And in respect to the police department, the only fee that we're looking at increasing is the impound vehicle fees from $50 to $60, so a $10 increase. In respect to the fire department, there will be no changes in any fees this year or next year, rather, next fiscal year. In our animal control, I believe I'm looking at 4 increases. One for the impound fees from 25 to 35. Put any animals to sleep, it's going to be 75 to 100. Owners surrender from 75 to 100. And disposal fee of any animal from $10 to 20. And that is it. And most of these fees I'm just requesting a slight increase just to cover. We're not looking at making money. That's not our job to earn money in a police department. We just want to make sure all our labor fees are covered in our time. And that's it. It's pretty simple on my end.
I had a question now. I think we came to this question, I think a year ago, so I'm not sure. But the false alarm, meaning if my alarm go off in my house and then you come out. But I know I spoke with you before about, I remember we kept getting calls. I know council kept getting emails as well as I did as well from certain people that kept calling the police department on other neighbors, and it was false. And I know talking about that and charging our residents when you are calling the police and falsely accusing people just because you don't like a neighbor.
Right.
Just because of whatever that neighbor may look like or be doing, you just don't like them for whatever reason. And we have our police department, usually 2 officers come out in 2 different vehicles because someone don't like someone else. And you get like 4 or 5 calls rapidly all the time. I know we talked about that before. Can you talk more about that?
Well, it would actually have to be an actual alarm. If you're calling on a neighbor that you may not like and make a false accusation, or you could be charged, number 1. And 2, if there's no alarm, then we're not going to charge you. And with the COVID, we fell behind in charging a lot of the residents and the business owners, for responding. But for the most part, there's only a handful of really businesses, not many residents. There's just a handful of businesses that constantly have alarms, and we try to work with them. A lot of time, like for instance, there was a new business, I believe on 8 Mile there. I don't want to name it, but we sent officers in there. We went on there like 4 or 5 times on alarms. We talked to the management and we got everything straightened out. We didn't even charge them. I mean, again, we don't want to make money, but sometimes when you have to go to some of these places 5, 6, 7 times a month, we have to do something to, compensate our time. But for the most part, we do our best to work with our residents and our business owners, when it comes to the alarms, because we encourage you to have alarms in your homes and in your businesses. We don't want to discourage, people from not having alarms. So, but for the most part, we will work with you. We're not looking at gouging you.
Right. Now, like I said, the false alarm is understood, but for a resident to continuously call the police and the police come out several times just because a resident don't like their neighbor.
You're talking about a nuisance,
Mhm.
a nuisance fee. Yes,
Right.
I mean, we can do that. I mean, but it depends on what kind of calls they are.
Okay.
For instance, if there's family issues in the house where we have to go there 3, 4, 5 times a month because somebody can't get their kids under control, we could charge them, based on the time we were there. Drunk driving, there's a fee for our officers' time. That's regulated by the state. There's other fees such as, let's say you made a bomb threat and we found out who it was and it costs the city a couple $1,000s in labor, we could charge you. But we could look at a nuisance call. It's just the only issue with that is there's a lot of time involved in it. Somebody would have to read the logs every single day, keep track of that. The supervisors would have to formulate a sheet, determine how many officers went there, how much time. So there is a lot of time and effort involved in it. So, but we could look into it.
Yeah, I want you to look into it because
Sure.
we already, to me, we don't have enough officers as it is, as I would like. And to have officers come out just because a neighbor don't like someone else and they're falsely accusing another neighbor, that's we spending money on that. So
Okay.
yeah, so if you can look into that, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Seeing what other cities are doing about that. Council, any questions?
Madam Mayor, I understand like your concern. For me, it's just really hard because I don't want people to ever think that they shouldn't call the cops if they do feel threatened. Like I understand where you're saying, because I know there are some people, and we know because we've gotten the emails from those same people. A lot of times I'm sure that are calling the police. I would say it would have to be pretty lenient, if we were to like put in an ordinance like that. So
Yeah,
Madam Mayor, if I could chime in here for just a moment.
yes, please.
Hi, there is, the city of Eastpointe does have an ordinance for summoning police, fire, ambulance as a joke or a prank. And it does state that it is unlawful. This is a misdemeanor for any person to summon as a joke or prank or otherwise without any good reason, therefore by telephone or otherwise, the police or fire department to go to an address where the service call is not needed. And so our office does prosecute those offenses. I have a handful right now that are in the pending stage. So the police department does issue citations for violations of that city ordinance.
So we have a lot pending right now?
There's a couple that I'm handling, yes.
Okay, and that was my issue, Ms. Lucido. And me being an ex-police officer, when police officers put their life on the line, it's no joke, and we don't play lightly on that. And
right,
so,
no, and I understand that, like I said, and I do think that, they should be prosecuted for, like Mr. Albright said, in a situation like that. I guess I was thinking more of like, let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example to make up here. I don't know if your neighbor was putting up signs, let's say, in their yard that you found offensive.
mhm,
I understand that like maybe calling the cops on that wouldn't be appropriate. But sometimes you need that intervention from the police department to kind of sometimes be able to make peace with that person, to be able to come to some understanding. And maybe not, maybe we need to look more into the police department eventually when, there's some cities that are starting to have like resolution centers for neighbors and stuff that they can go to and the police can refer them to going to before fining them. Maybe something like that might be something to look into instead of just writing citations.
yeah, I think we have that already. I talked to the superintendent 2 years ago about that. We do have resolution centers. that neighbors can talk to neighbors and that the school district pays for, that we can use. So we do have that. So if you want to talk to, I'll send you the superintendent's number so you can know more about that.
Plus,
So,
we have neighborhood watch, or we have liaison officers assigned to different sectors of the cities. All they have to do is call their officer, and we do it all the time. We'll go over there and we'll try to mediate, any type of tension between neighbors. We do it all the time. And for the most part, it works out very well.
All right, so we have the neighborhood watch, and then we have the intervention center at the schools for parents and neighbors as well. So we have 2 resources. So any other questions for the director?
Were there 2 increases in the, it was in the 5th and 6th ones, we did have an increase, I think, right? It was green on here.
Yeah.
What were the original numbers, just so I can then have those?
Are you talking about the alarms? Mr.
Yeah,
Mc-
false alarm.
We left them, it remained the same. I sent out a memo
Oh,
just last week with just the changes I just discussed. We're gonna leave the alarms as is
okay.
current.
Yeah, I
So
agree, Councilman DeMonico. I thought we would have the before charges and the after on here. I just seen the new charges on here. So I agree.
Yeah, that would have been very helpful for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was sent, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, the memo I wrote has the current charge and the increases. And again, for the police and animal control, we're talking five changes, and that's it. Most of them are $10. I believe they're all $10 changes, every one of them. The ones I mentioned are all $10 changes. That's it. The alarms we're going to leave status quo.
Okay, and they was just colored green. And you said $10 increase for the impounded vehicle was 50,
Yes.
now 60.
And for
Okay.
the animal control fees, the 4, they're $10 increases. That is all.
Okay,
Everything is, we try to stay in line with other communities. We don't want to be on the high end. We want to be reasonable with the residents, and I think our fees are very reasonable.
okay. Now going back, I know we just came from this and then I'm gonna move forward. Now, I know we probably have to go back and look at it, but I know I was being nice because I just found out we do misdemeanors for the nuisance. And I was trying to do a fee schedule. I was being nice. So maybe we can do something, think about, what other cities are doing. Are they doing misdemeanors, or are they're charging? Because like Ms. Lucido said, and I agree, when someone calls, it can be for, intervention, but we don't want it to do it to use the police as a way to harass another resident, And so just find a medium there where I'm not getting a misdemeanor because this person is bothering me. I want to call the police, but or get fined. But so how can we find a medium there where we can have, peace and, respect for one another and not be charged or get a misdemeanor? So we'll work that out, and I'll let you look into that. Any other questions for the public safety director? Okay, seeing none. Do we, Mr. Albright, do we vote on each sector, or are we going to do all as one? How do you want us to do this tonight?
Madam Mayor, you could, the council, however the council wants to do it, there is no set way. It's just a matter of preference, how the council prefers to do it.
Okay, well, let's do it each director, because one set might want to change, and I don't want to do it all that way. So council, you want to do a motion on the fee schedule for the police department?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to adopt the new fee schedule for the police department.
A second.
Thank you. Motion and support, please call the roll.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Owens.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Doom, please lead the way.
Yes, we'll go on now to Finance Department, please.
Yes, the only changes I have are on the rate for billing or for mailing out to non-US addresses, and then for duplicates. What we've decided to do is eliminate the dollar value and just replace it with current US Postal Service rate. That way, if the post office changes their postage, we just change the fee. That's really all we're charging, is the actual postage. The duplicate is actual postage plus 25 cents. So really minor, but this way we don't have to come back to council every time the post office does something. And then I'll talk about SLAP later when we get into the public works area.
That'd be page 15 then, right? I think for,
Yep.
for it.
Page 15 is finance.
So what was the pass rate, Director, you said for the USPS rate? Because I said, what's that, 66 cents and then 75?
Right. The international was 66 cents and then a duplicate was 75 cents and a duplicate non-US was $1.41.
Okay.
And we're basically saying it's just postage rate and then duplicates are postage rate plus a quarter.
I'm sorry. I thought someone else had a question for the director. Is no more questions for Director Blum? Can I get a motion for the finance department?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the new fee schedule for the finance department.
Support.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Owens.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Doom, would you like to go next?
Yes, I would like to bring up that you just approved the police department, but there was no mention made of the fire department. Would you like Mr. Sage to speak a little bit on the fire department fees and then possibly vote on that separately?
Yeah, it wasn't no changes, I thought, but go ahead.
Sure. There's no changes in the fire.
Okay. I thought Mr. Sage had a few changes. All right, very good. Then we'll move on to Public Works.
Actually, can I ask one process question? Again, real quick. Do we, Mr. Albright, I guess these are going to be on the next agenda again anyway, because this is ordinance changes, so we'd have to vote on it a second time, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So no changes for the fire, and who was next? If Councilman.
Department of Public Works, please.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Director of Public Works on.
Well, he was there.
Yep, he's
Where is
trying
he?
to unmute now.
Oh,
Good evening, Director.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Just a couple of changes in the DPW. The big one would be the sidewalk assessment program. Currently, it's a 10% admin fee, and we would like to change it to 25% of the cost of construction. And that would be to cover the walking, the marking of the cement, the dealing with the homeowners, and all the paperwork involved with sending that literature out to them. The second one would be a change in the showmobile. And I'd actually like to send out a memo on that because that showmobile is not in condition right now that we should be sending out to any other municipalities or any kind of parties right now. It's definitely good enough shape for us to use for the Gratiot cruise, but for other municipalities right now, it needs some attention. So I'm going to send a memo out on that one to scratch that fee that my predecessor, Mr. Abraham, had of $1,345. And once we get it back in working condition, we will keep it at the $175 per day to municipalities that we share mutual aid with.
Can I ask I think we're missing something. Where's this $1,345?
Well, I was sent a proposed rate. So I'm not sure if you had it, but it's what Mr. Abraham proposed.
What page, is this included in here?
So I see Showmobile on page 13, but I don't see, I see that we're just removing it completely is what it says. I mean,
Well, then that's terrific. That's actually what I want to do.
well, are we all gonna be on the same page tonight or
Yeah, I'm working off a few different 13.
Yeah, now I see it. Thank you, Mr.
I
DeMonico.
don't see it, Cody, you?
well, I guess, and my question about that, well, were we just gonna, can we fix it and then just use it, continue to use it? I mean, is that what you were saying though?
So we did get an estimate on it repairing it, bringing it back to in service, and we just haven't gotten that estimate back yet.
Okay.
But it's highlighted, so we can't see.
So as far as that one, we're going to keep it status quo.
Okay, and not.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
I think Councilman DeMonico wasn't done.
Oh, no, that's fine.
And then, yeah.
Well, I was just, well, so we have it highlighted red, which would mean if we voted on as is, we'd be removing it. We should just keep it then, right? We're saying, I mean, once it's available again. Otherwise, we gotta pass another ordinance again when it's done. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. So then, okay, everyone mark that as keep then, I guess, right?
Yep,
now,
yep,
instead
yep.
of red.
Sorry about the confusion there.
Okay. It's fine. Just want to make sure we're on the same page here.
Yeah. So I'm working off of two different papers. I'm working off of going through Mr. Abraham's old files and seeing what he proposed as well. So I didn't know how far that went.
I don't think we have any of that unless I haven't seen that.
Well, I can tell you it's a mess.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. I think Councilwoman Lucido had a comment.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the sidewalk assessment program really quick. So you're saying 25% of the cost of construction to cover like the walkthrough and the marking. And, you know, I raised this concern before. So what happens, let's say you come to my house and you mark 7 squares that need to be replaced. And then I decide that I'm going to hire my own contractor and I'm not going to use the city. Well, I'm not paying then that 25% that the people who are using the city, right, to cover this cost. That's my one concern. My second concern is the fact that there's some homes that, let's say you live on just by luck, you live on a corner lot and you have 9 squares being replaced. And then the person down the street doesn't live on a corner lot and they're only having 1. Why is that person that lives on that corner lot or that has that many squares replaced having to pay so much more of our administration costs? That's my biggest concern with the way our sidewalk assessment fees are done.
Well, I again, this was Mr. Abraham's proposals, okay? These were not mine. So I believe that 25% is a little bit bigger than it should be. I want to go back though a little bit historically, because historically a part-timer did all of this inspecting and walking through, and now we literally have 2 full-time employees that mark all the cement and go out and doing all the inspections. So the cost of that is getting more expensive than just a part-time employee working 29.5 hours a week.
Can you answer why we went? I mean, I know that wasn't you that hired them, but why we went, or maybe Mr. Blum or Ms. Doom might be able to cover this, why we went to the full-time employees and went into not using the part-time employees. I mean, sidewalk replacement program, a lot of people have a hard time paying that. They don't budget for that. They don't know what's coming. I know we send out letters and stuff, but it is still like an expense. And then to add 25%, that's a lot of money for residents that, you know, they didn't expect to have to pay to begin with.
I agree. We hear that every single day.
Yeah, the sidewalk program was actually run out of the building department. And it was decided that it fit better over at 10 Mile, and it was transferred over there. Now, why the previous director chose to go from usage of part-time to usage of full-time, I cannot answer that. But when it was within the building department, that was where we used the part-timers to manage the program. Yeah, but that was Director Abraham's decision to make.
So how much is this? How much is it right now to replace 1 square of sidewalk? Like if let's say they can't mark 1, how much is 1 square?
I don't have those numbers in front of me. I really don't know.
Okay, because let's say it was $200 for 1 square. I have no
I
idea.
think it's more like 125, to be honest. $125 for 1 square.
Okay, so then we're looking at each square is an additional $30. So that's bringing it up to $155. Like, and then we have to take into consideration, like if the cost gets too high, people are just going to be hiring their own contractors to do this. They're not even going to be using the cities. And then it's, I don't know, I'd rather use the city's contractor.
I understand. So again, and to be quite honest here, I'm not going to fight a fight for Mr. Abraham that's no longer here. I'm perfectly fine with keeping it at the 10%. The reason he did go to the full-timers is because he felt that they're pouring city sidewalks and he wanted to make sure that there was thorough inspections on it, where a part-time employee wasn't doing those thorough inspections. They were simply going there, basically making sure it was done, to be honest with you, where we have an inspector there on the tear out, the form, and the pour back, and the restoral. So we are much more thorough now on the inspection than we were when the building department had it.
Okay.
But again, that was his 25%, okay? And I agree with you in that aspect. If it's $100, now it just turned into $125. It could accumulate very fast. I'm perfectly okay with staying with the 10%.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. My only concern is, first, I want to put out there, Mr. Abraham did an awesome job for Eastpointe.
He did.
So and I really like what he did. But on that note, coming to a meeting and proposing something you don't agree with Mr. Palucci and didn't do the research, I want to come back to this and see what you have to say as the new director. Because, you know, when he left, and I know you've been with Eastpointe a little bit longer than Mr. Abraham, so you have more experience in Eastpointe. He has a lot of experience in Detroit. And, you know, so too, you guys might bump a little head a little bit because of the different experiences in different cities. So I want to see what you have to say about once you look at the fees and the new staffing and come back maybe and see if we need to, you know, go higher, lower, and see what you have to say from your perspective as the new director. I know you just getting, you know, acclimated and everything like that. So we want to hear what you have to say as our new director and what you think, you know, what would be best for Eastpointe. If we can come back to this later on, if you like.
I could definitely do that, and I appreciate the understanding on that. We had no conversation with these fee changes, none at all. So
Right.
when this meeting was brought up is when we started looking at it.
Right, that's why I don't know if we should talk about fee changes since the transfer of titles have changed, you know, discussion was made and why certain things were done, and you're telling us to do something that you quite didn't do the research on and someone else did compared to you being here now. So I don't know, we should talk about fee schedule changes under a new director who might not agree with the last director. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm feeling right now. I don't know if you agree with that.
Nope, that's exactly what you're hearing.
Okay. Council, what do you have to say about that?
I agree, because I'm guessing the $1,800 for the water disconnection fees.
Well, I can go into a little bit of detail on that one, okay? Because he did come to me on that one. If you want to go to the water and sewer.
Well, I guess I'm agreeing with you, Mayor, though, about maybe we probably could talk about a lot of these, but if we don't have a good fee to agree on right now, we might just want to just talk about it at a future meeting for this.
Yeah, I agree, Councilman. Not only that is when the last person took, you know, his knowledge and his research is gone and we have a new director. Now he needs to put his research. He has the knowledge, but he has to do extended research because when you under new leadership, there, you know, they have to do things their way. And I want to make sure Mr. Palucci he's in the position doing things what's best is for Eastpointe and his vision. But we have to hear under his vision. And I don't think this is vision right now until he comes back and let us know and does the research. So we're going to move right along and keep the fee schedule as is until we come back. Is that okay, council?
That would be fine. Yeah, I agree. I think we should have his opinion and not Mr. Abraham's.
Absolutely. Thank you. With consideration of Mr. Abraham, hopefully you can talk to him and see why he did that. In the future, I want people who leave the city of Eastpointe to make sure they pass on their education and experience and why they're doing something, not just leave our city and leave the next director not knowing what happened. So hopefully we do that ongoing. Ms. Doom, who will be next?
We'll go on to building department next.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and good evening, council members. I hate to piggyback on Mr. Palucci, but I'll reiterate that when this fee schedule was put together, it was done so by myself and Ms. Van Haren, who is since retired. But I am familiar, and in past positions, I did quite an extensive research on the fee schedules, charging of fees, and what goes into the cost of those fees. So you'll see we are proposing a number of changes, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Can you tell us what page you're on so we all can keep up with you?
Oh, absolutely, Madam Mayor. I'm page 1.
Okay.
Please, I'll start at the beginning if you don't mind hearing me talk, and please feel free to stop me or throw questions at me along the way.
Yes.
When we looked at the plan review fees, I think it was a 10% charge, and we propose an increase to 15%. This small adjustment will help us cover the cost of what is involved behind the scenes in receiving plans, reviewing plans, corresponding back and forth with the builder or architect, and looking at revisions, which there tends to be a need for many times, just to make sure that the not only the codes, but that the city's ordinances are adhered to. We've proposed to bring them from 10 to 15%. The telecommunications, right-of-way application fee, we're proposing to increase. There again, the cost would be in line with the time involved with receiving the application, processing it, performing the reviews, maintaining, doing the record keeping, the scheduling of the necessary inspections, and then finalizing the permit, and again, maintaining the records as we're required to comply with the state's requirements and mandates.
One more thing, Ms. Hardcastle. Can you tell us the before price? Because we have only the after price of change. Can you tell us what you're changing it to? I apologize, that's not on here. So what the actual price was before. I
am so sorry, Madam Mayor. I don't have that information at my fingertips right now, but I can absolutely follow it up with an email.
That's the only problem, because I would hate to not know the actual price, and then it might be 500, and then we're doing a $250 increase.
Madam Mayor, I have it.
You have it. Can you help us with this?
We're on plan review fees, correct?
Right away, application fees.
Yes. Thank you, Councilwoman Lucido.
So the plan review fees was for residential plan review was $75, and that was new 1 to 2 family residential structure.
No, we're on the right of way application fee, correct?
Yes, on page 1 of 21 for the telecommunications right of way application fee, correct, Madam
Okay,
Mayor?
sorry.
$550.
Yeah, plan review fee. Okay. You have it, Mr. DeMonico?
It's $550 for that.
Thank you, sir.
$250 increase, Councilman.
Yeah, $200 increase. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And if I may, I think that Mr. Blum, our finance director, touched upon this a bit, and this was the subject of a number of meetings that Ms. Van Haren and I had about when we looked at each individual permit and what was required as far as, again, the cost involved with us providing the service. Certainly not to get ahead or at the expense of our residents. It was truly the focus of covering our own cost. The increase would include our internal labor costs as well as the skilled trades or the inspectors that are involved in performing the inspections.
Ms. Hardcastle, can I ask a overall question about all these changes? Are we, or maybe Mr. Blum, from the audit, I see the one page was included here just before this, where I think it's showing, right, our yearly shortfall for construction code fees was like 178,000. So a lot of these different fees increases were meant to cover that deficit then?
Absolutely, yes, Councilman DeMonico. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Blum.
No, that's okay. Yeah, the one thing with that note that you should note as council is that particular audit footnote did not start until January 1st of 2000. So in a mere 20 years, we have under collected almost $6 million, our cost versus the fees that have been collected. At this point, I'd be happy if we just broke even every year, not even make up any of the deficit, just not create any new deficit, because that comes right out of the general fund.
Okay. So with the increases, you said it was 178,000 that that was audited that we're missing. So with the increases, how much will we increase? Would the increase be? What would the total be?
If I may, Madam Mayor, the assumption or the goal would be that with these changes, we will cover the cost of, I hate to use the expression, but of doing business so that we're no longer being subsidized by the general fund. That's absolutely our goal, to be independently funded and not relying on the subsidization, excuse me, please. And with, the talks that I had with Ms. Van Haren, our previous director, who is more familiar with the city, and in my becoming more familiar and being able to compare to other communities in Macomb County where I have worked, some of the fees struck me as particularly low. So I can understand where some of our council members and perhaps Madam Mayor yourself may look at these and think, a $200 increase, that's a large amount. But when we look at the cost of what is entailed in providing that service, the inspection, maintaining the record keeping, and all of the behind the scenes work, our goal, just as Mr. Blum said, is not by any means to make a profit. It's just to balance out the cost and to no longer need to be leaning to the general fund to operate our department.
Okay. Thank you. You want to continue?
Welcome, Madam Mayor. So we are also proposing an increase, and I thank you, Councilwoman Lucido and Councilman DeMonico. I apologize. I should have had the old to compare to the new. It's been some time since I looked at this with Ms. Van Haren. And one of the things that we did was, again, look to communities around us, but we are proposing for the vacation of an easement, the attorney and consultant fees, $250. As we know, billable hours for an attorney and the time that's involved just in us processing and then bringing to Mr. Albright for the correct paperwork to be done and recorded. We felt that bringing up the cost to $250 would, again, just cover what would be required as far as the time involved and the cost involved to perform that service. And the same would carry over to the easement encroachments. We're proposing $275 as the fee.
Madam Mayor,
In addition
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
fee?
I'm sorry, just really quick, I just have one question, or I guess maybe suggestion, and I don't know if you would be okay with it. In the building department, there's a lot of increases, and a lot of these are very, they're not really that big. I was wondering if it would be quicker or easier if we just went through with the ones that we had concerns about and asked Ms. Hardcastle the ones that we actually had concerns with, because a lot of these are very, just kind of increasing with inflation rates.
Mhm.
So I don't think they're
Yes.
really of a concern. I don't know if we need to go through all of them. It's up to you, Madam Mayor.
If all the council agrees and want to go to where they had concerns at, I'm fine with that, Councilwoman. Council? Unless we want to go through all of them, I have no problem with that either, due to the fact that we got, how many residents, 27 residents here, and want to probably hear if they have a business, what their increase is. So I mean, that's my only concern. But again, some of these increases haven't went that high. I don't think, probably like a $50 to $100 increase. But I mean, she's going pretty quick. So council, I don't know.
That's either way.
I would just say we just go like a page at a time, so we all know what the same things we're instead of going back and forth from things.
Yeah, I think you're on a, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, though, that we could kind of ask questions instead of, because there's hundreds of changes, right? Yeah.
Right, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me, one way or the other, we're here. We're not going anywhere, so.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am, I was about to ask you.
I think we were on a roll, so let's continue. As we were.
She's pretty quick, so will you please continue? We apologize for interrupting. We were just trying to just find a quicker way to give out, I see what Councilwoman Lucido was saying, a quick way to get through it, but I think you're doing pretty good with, because we're almost done with page 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Council. I'll do my best to keep it short. For the civil infraction tickets, what we have found often and typically when they go to court, the plea advisement or I'll say the compromise that we come up with our residents so that, I should say whether it's we have the misdemeanor and civil infractions, but the $250 that we have and the compliance letter and the fee in lieu of the tree, the $275, those again are all when Mary and I, or Ms. Van Haren, I'm sorry, pardon me, looked at these. Some of the things were looked at and said, this hasn't been increased in a long time. And some looked at and said, okay, this should give us keep us within the comfort zone to break even. And as Mr. Blum said, our goal, it was not as far as looking to be profitable by any means, but just to recoup what's involved in, and we did as well look at, as I mentioned earlier, what they're doing in other communities. Does anyone have any questions for me of page 1, if I may, before I move on to page 2?
Are these new fees? Because I don't see this as even being on the old schedule. I'm looking at page 1 of the old ordinance, and I don't see this on here. Council, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, yeah, the yellow, you're talking about the 3 yellow ones, right? Those are all new.
Yes, sir.
Yes, what we found in some cases, for the fee in lieu of the tree, some people, when they go through the planning commission or building process and they're required to plant trees, have in other communities and in ours, as Mary shared with me, been given the option in certain circumstances to pay the city this fee in lieu of installing a tree on their property, in keeping with the idea that the city will still be maintaining the trees, but that there would be a cost saving to the builder or developer, and still an ability to recoup on behalf of the city. As far as the zoning compliance letter, more so now with the adoption of the medical marijuana ordinance, we are inundated with calls with questions regarding properties, locations, zoning, if these, certain addresses are in the green zone, and then asking for us to prepare and provide a letter. So this $50 proposed cost would just, again, be to cover the time of our staff to do the research, take the phone call, process the request, do the research, and then draft and provide a letter. I'm so sorry, excuse me. And that is where we came to the conclusion that $50 based on the time that would be involved would be a reasonable cost. For the civil infraction tickets, there has been, since I've been here, a process where typically if a property is brought into compliance and we are at court and we are able to dismiss under what they call the 771 plea to be taken under advisement so that nothing will go on an individual's record, they would pay a court cost. And the cost that they were paying, and I'm sorry, Mr. Albright, for some reason the amount is slipping my mind right now. I'm thinking 150 or perhaps 200. Maybe you can correct me, sir.
Aaron, it's 150.
Thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Albright.
welcome.
So this 250 of the $150, what we learned, and again, hopefully, sir, you might have input and will be able to correct me. There is a mandated fee that goes to the Victims Compensation Fund and another that goes to the state of Michigan. So our department will do all of the work up to doing inspections, issuing violation notices, working with taking in complaints from neighbors and trying to gain compliance and then issue a ticket. And while our goal is not to be punitive, so we've always been encouraged to allow that this not stay on somebody's record. But with the cost, the minimum cost, the city, or I shouldn't say the city, the building department doesn't recoup anything when it's done that way with the 150. So we're asking that the council consider this $250 for the civil infraction tickets so that we still are able, if a property is in compliance, to have that tool and to ask Mr. Albright to enter into this plea under the advisement for the 771 and cover the Victims Compensation Fund, the state costs for the court, and have some of this $100 come back to the building department for the cost of the work that's done all the way up to and excuse me, issuing the ticket and appearing in court as well. And so that was where those amounts came from in our discussions, and what I would ask the council to consider.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Councilman DeMonico. We typically do our best and have used issuing tickets as a last ditch resort. But we do give extensions and do our best to try and work with the property owners. Unfortunately, there are some though that don't comply until we are at the court and ready to go before the judge.
What's like one very easy example of one of these civil infraction tickets? Like what can you receive it for? I think I'm not understanding that. Just any violation of the what, like?
It could be for blight, junk vehicles, failure to comply. So it's a number of them that would fall under civil infraction, but it's what our ordinance officers would write up and cite in a normal day.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, Councilman DeMonico, all of our notices are issued with giving time to correct them. And then we always allow for an extension if the owner asks. And of course, considering all of the events in the last year, do our best to try and cooperate and work with people, provide them resources through Macomb, the Community Action Network, if they're available. Even just this last season, what we found residents that were in need of assistance with snow removal, And when we found out through the county that their list was full and they were limited on resources, we reached out to the high school with the thought that there were seniors that needed community service hours. And you know, it was tough with COVID, but we've definitely been able to lay the groundwork so that we'll have that in place for next winter to help as another service to provide our residents.
Okay. Cool.
One thing though, I would mention, and I know we'll get into this and actually right on the next page, so I better stop myself from talking and ask first though, if anybody has any other questions for me.
No, I don't. We can continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 2 at the top, you'll see we've proposed the snow, ice, and debris removal. I do know that right now is the $100 administrative fee plus the actual expense, which would vary. I think our contractor charged us $49 per lot this year. I know from personal experience myself, the ordinance officers and I divided up the city, and all of us went out and went from door to door. I had section 1, and because our ordinance requires that you physically post the property in as one of the methods of service, that we would, it took 6 of us 2 days to go through the entire community, house by house, and get out and post each property. Then we had the record keeping part of it, where we had to come back and generate a list to provide to our contractor, and then work with and re-inspect and update our contractor. The ordinance does actually allow for us to write a ticket for this, but we in discussions thought that with the fee and the work involved, that there was no reason to create more work and issue a ticket. I'm not saying that the cost is meant to be punitive as much as it is to recover the cost of the staff and the amount of work that's involved in doing the postings and enforcing the snow in our community, the snow removal. And the same carries over to the noxious weeds and refuse. There again, the ordinance allows us to issue a ticket, and we do not, because there is the cost in here that the actual expense is covered, and then the administrative fee includes, there again, us going out doing inspections throughout the community, posting the property, coming back and generating a notice of violation that would go back out, creating the list, and then working with our grass cutter or lawn maintenance company to go out, and they provide us with pictures and list when they've completed the work. We have to then in turn take that list, enter it into the system, generate a report, and the administrative fee includes the time that's involved in, be it clerical and the ordinance inspector, doing the documentation and record keeping for these. They are called violations, but in my mind, what the city does is provide proper notice and then go out and abate the violation or correct the issue. And then there again, Madam Mayor, we're asking that we just recoup the cost of what's involved in us performing that service to make sure that the grass is cut and the sidewalks are walkable and not snow covered.
I've got a quick question about this that I think will apply to a lot of the other ones too. I thought, so when I think Mr. Sabota was here, now maybe Mr. Blum may be able to comment, and Ms. Doom, we had approved the purchase of computers to go in the code enforcement vehicles. Would this not help streamline this a bit? Because it sounds like we take notes while we're out, and then you come back to City Hall and do your whole day's work of code enforcement when you get back to City Hall. Like you don't have a computer in the car to like enter things as you're going along. I thought we discussed this when Mr. Sabota was here and we approved the purchase. I swear.
I know it was discussed. I don't recall it, whether it was approved or not. And I know it was looked into as far as trying to find the right tablets, and I think it just got dropped as, city manager changes happened.
So right now that is true though. We do take notes while we're out, come back to City Hall, and then you hop on the computer, do all that and like the SNA and stuff.
Yes, Councilman DeMonico, and it's like you're right in line with me. One of the things that I've discussed and asked for is the ability to provide that tool to our inspectors so that they are able to do that work out in the field.
Well, I'm all for that coming back to us again if it needs to.
Fantastic. If I had known it was there, I promise you I would have jumped on it, because I've been able to use a tool like that in the past, and it's fantastic. You can get a lot done. I know our fire department uses a different software program, but they have tablets that they are able to take pictures, and right when they're completed with their inspection, they're able to email the report out. And I think that's not only a time saver, it's a fantastic tool for both the officers and for the residents in our community to have that, almost immediate information returned to them, whether it's based on an inspection with code violations or things that need to be corrected, or an ordinance issue. That's actually something that we've discussed with the city manager and with our IT.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. If I may, for the rest of the page, the increases, you'll see we've discussed and are asking the council to please consider, again, the cost of the permits, increasing them to the cost of the building department providing that service, whether it's based on the number of inspections, or it includes receiving the application, doing a review of the application and approving, then issuing the permit, and performing inspections that are required, as well as doing the record keeping to comply with the state of Michigan's mandates for our building department.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question on one of the fees on this page, if I may.
Yes, ma'am, please.
So, what goes into applying, what's the difference between putting up a shed and a swimming pool when it comes to the building department, how much time it takes them?
With the shed, we receive an application, and what's done is like a zone review, Councilwoman Lucido. So we would look at the survey or plot plan, verify that the location's in compliance with our ordinance. With the swimming pool, that as well as receiving the application and doing the review, the inspection is much more detailed with regards to the requirements, like the chime that's required at the back door going out to the yard to alert residents, the self-latching or closing gate, the 4-foot or the fencing that's required to keep people, or how do I say this, keep people that are outside where they belong, and not using a pool. So that's more in depth. And typically a zoning inspection, they would come out, okay, yes, you installed it where you proposed it and where it's approved. It's not too close to the lot line or other structures. But with the swimming pool, there again, it's the, an ordinance officer can do a zoning type inspection, whereas a building inspector would be looking at the code requirements that come into play when a pool is installed.
Okay, because I did have a little bit of a concern with this, because we are going from $50 to $150, so we're actually tripling the cost. You can go out and buy a swimming pool for your backyard, above ground one, for about probably $400, and then we're charging $150 to be able to put it up. I just don't want it to deter. We're supposed to be a family town. I don't want this to be like a burden for a resident who wants to put a pool up for their kids, because they have, not be able to afford it because the permit's $150. To me, that just seems really high, really expensive. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
actually, it's going to be more than that, because you also have to put up the fence. So even if you went to buy a pool for $450, paid $150 fee, Now you got to build a fence around it, even if your backyard is fenced in.
I don't think you have to have a fence around the pool if your yard is fenced in.
Oh, I don't concur. I literally had to take down my pool that I've had in my backyard because a inspector came next door to my neighbor's house and see my pool, and we have a fence, but they said it had to have a fence around the pool itself and not just around my backyard. So I had to
They
take it
didn't,
down.
but they did, but the building department didn't tag that when you put the pool up.
No, they did not tag it. It was an above ground pool. I just bought it at Costco.
Okay.
Ms. Hardcastle, can you verify that for us?
If I may, when we compared our current or the current permit fee, it was lower or below what other communities close to us are charging. And just as Councilwoman Moore said, the building code does require that a swimming pool be fenced in for safety purposes, for a child wandering out. The same reason those things would come into play, that the back door would be required to have a chime when it opens to alert, a parent or an adult in the house that a child's going out to the pool, or the self-latching gate. I do understand with the above ground pools now that the building code requires that they have the ladder be raised up and locked. There's a mechanism, but there again, that all goes to the safety portion that applies with regards to swimming pools and the building code.
Anyone want to speak on that? 'Cause I didn't.
One more thing I would like.
So I don't know nothing about that.
So one more
How do
thing.
you feel about that?
Madam Mayor, one more thing. I had an above ground pool and my ladder was in my garage. So there was no ladder even attached. We kept it in the garage and we only took it out whenever we went out. But I still was told that I had to take it down in the middle of winter. Yeah. So, and that was due to the fact that there wasn't a fence built around the above ground pool.
What do you think about that? You're a councilwoman now.
Well, I'm buying a new pool. I'm gonna buy a new pool and I'm gonna comply with whatever we say. So my pool this year, even though it will be above ground, it would probably cost me $1,500 with these fees and buying a fence around it. It's not gonna be a in-ground pool, it's gonna be above ground, but I gotta fence it and pay an extra $150 fee. And if we approve this and, maybe take out a loan.
For a swimming pool, right?
Well, an above ground swimming pool, yeah. But
I don't have a swimming pool and I don't pay the fee, but I just don't, I guess I don't completely understand already having the pool fenced in your own privacy and then having another fence. So that's why I'm saying, when we are regular, I'm still a resident, but when we become, when we're residents and we deal with things and then we become elected officials, we have more of an insight on the problems than the regular person would. And how would you deal with it? That's why a lot of people, when they get elected, they say, okay, when I get elected, I'm gonna fight for this because this is wrong. So that's why I asked you, how did you feel about that whole situation? And, do you think that was okay? Or what was your opinion about having a fence and then another fence? And I mean.
Well, at the time, I wasn't an elected official, of course. No, I definitely wasn't happy because I was told to take down a pool in the middle of winter. We didn't drain it. So I got several notices and I let her know it's winter. It was like February or something, January last year. And so eventually my kids staffed the pool, my older children, they was like, well, Mom, we don't want you to get an actual ticket for this because it was, several months before I thawed out. And so they really cut the pool up. So I wasn't happy about that. So now I have to invest in another expensive pool. However, I don't have any little children at home. So to me, having to put things on my back door and all of that, for what is the purpose of that when I don't have any little children? I don't think that the part of the code, I do understand, but the other part I don't, especially to comply and you don't have any little children at home. But I am willing to comply because I definitely want a pool. And I don't want to go to the community pools because of COVID-19. So, but I'm gonna look more into it. I did go to Costco today and I say, are your pools out yet? And they don't have them yet, but I will look more into the ordinance. But I'm with Sarah that about having this jump from $50 to $150. That's a big steep. And when I've seen it today and I highlighted it, like, oh my God, that's another fee that I'm gonna have to add to my pool fee. However, I do understand the cost of living.
Yeah. Well, you have to buy a fence now too.
Oh, definitely have to buy a fence to make
Yeah.
sure I go up under the frost, 4 feet down, and yeah, I got to do all of that. So yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Thank you. So Ms. Hardcastle, that's correct. So when they have the swimming pool, they have to do the swimming pool fee and then the fence around it fee as well, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and these, these parts of the building code are built in to safeguard against accidental drownings. You may not at this time, Councilwoman Moore, have young children, but you may have a guest who does. At one point, you may be blessed with grandchildren, or you may at some point decide to move, and then the pool typically would stay with the house, and so part of us making sure that that's safe and complies with our code, does build in these requirements and these extra steps that are involved with inspecting. Just to compare again, and I'm sorry that you had that experience. I feel, and hearing you share that, I would have handled that differently. I know a lot of above ground pools do come, you removing the ladder would satisfy the concern of a young child being able to climb up and in and drown if unsupervised. But those extra mechanisms of the self-latching or self-closing gate and the chime or alarm on the door is required, and it's a safeguard to prevent accidental drowning. But because those are required, it just shifts from having perhaps an ordinance inspector do a zone review that a shed's located where they indicated it would be, versus a building inspector to go out, and have to go in to the home and test that the door chime does alert when the door is open. Certainly they can from the outside check that the gate has a self-latching or self-closing. It's just that there's more steps involved. And, I hate to go back to this, but in comparing to some other communities, it's not very far out of line. And if the council sees that as being too cost prohibitive, perhaps that you may consider meeting in the middle. And again, the goal is not to make money off of our residents by any means, council. It really truly does focus on what the cost is of providing the service.
So Ms. Hardcastle, basically, getting the pool permit, getting the fence permit, so you can build a fence and everything, basically is if you can't afford a pool, don't buy one, right?
Couldn't have said it better. Councilwoman Moore.
If I could, Mayor,
Yes,
well, I
sir.
guess real quick. So with what Mayor Pro Tem Lucido said, we want to make sure, some of these, if a business is coming to town and we're charging them fees, they're going to come and they're making a profit, right? But we also want to balance doing these things for residents who, obviously, if you're putting a pool up, you're not making a profit or anything off of that. We want to make it somewhat reasonable. I think maybe we can meet in the middle. And how many of these permits do we even do a year? Because I can't imagine it's a huge amount. Do you have a rough estimate even, Ms. Hardcastle?
I don't think more than 5, Councilman DeMonico.
So, okay, well, then why don't we go to 100? I would motion we change this to 100 instead of 150 then, and we're talking about a whole $250 here then. If
I
we're
would
only
support
doing
that.
5 of these permits.
I was thinking about meeting more in the middle of doing 150, half of that.
75? All right, let's go with 75.
And
All right,
75. Good auctioneer, like, yeah, because like I said, I don't want to say 150. I don't have a pool, so I want to be considerate to the people that do. So, and since Ms. Moore is actually a person that went through it, I want to listen to someone that actually has a pool, went through it, and compare that to this price. So let's go to $75 right now, since we don't have a lot of people that do it, because they have to pay for a pool and a fence. And I think some people don't even know they have to build a fence now. So
And that's a disclaimer. I did not know. I always thought that since I had a fence around my entire backyard, that my pool was fenced in. So, and I had a gate and it closed and locked. So that's what I figured was okay. I didn't know that I was out of compliance.
yeah, I think a lot of people don't know. And I think we have to find a way to let the residents know that, how to be in compliance without getting charged. I know, we go by and we give them a warning, but I think some people don't know these things when buying a home in Eastpointe, and then they buy a house with a swimming pool. And then when they buy the house, they got to buy a fence around the swimming pool, that they didn't know about. So, well, we said 75. I don't know if all of council agree with that price as well.
I'll support that.
I agree with it since I got to buy a fence.
Right, why don't we do a quick vote on that one little change then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
When we do the whole vote, we can add that as one of the changes, if you guys want to do it that way. Okay, Ms. Hardcastle, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're proposing the residential demolition and commercial or industrial demolition permit fees be increased. There again, Madam Mayor and Council, this would go to the cost of receiving the application, processing the application, performing the necessary inspections, which are at least 2, would be an open hole and a final. And oftentimes with commercial or larger demolitions, there are multiple inspections, as well as the record keeping. We also have to do and oversee testing for lead, any type of, and asbestos, excuse me, any type of abatement. We have to be involved in and again, keep records for, as well as notifying, providing the state with a 10-day notice. And we do that and work closely, at least with the demolitions that have been done in the short time that I've been here. Our cost was very low compared to other communities. And here the proposed increase for the demolition for both residential and industrial commercial would be to cover the cost. And I know we also coordinate with the water and sewer department for cap-offs. And so at this, when we did the cost analysis, we felt would be a reasonable increase, again, council, to cover the cost of us receiving, processing, issuing, following up, inspecting, finalizing the permit, and then maintaining the records. For the parking lot, the same thought process went into that for the increase of the 150 and 200. The zoning for the shed, we touched on just a bit earlier. That's something, again, where we would review a plat plan and an application with the proposed location. We would issue a permit based on the zone review and then go out and this is something an ordinance inspector could do versus a skilled trade inspector. So there's less cost involved in the actual inspections. So that's where we're proposing $50. Here we are to the fence. As we talked about, this one for us requires an open inspection, excuse me, to verify, just as you said, Councilwoman Moore, that it's going below or down to the posts are being placed deep enough. And then a final inspection, we look at that the fence is located properly along the property line and that it's installed in compliance. And then we maintain the record. With fencing, something that's unique to our community that I had not done or been aware of in other communities was the requirement to get permission from the neighbors. So that's something that we have also in my short time coordinated with and worked with an owner who's applying for to reach out to their neighbors and get that permission that our ordinance requires. And there's that leads to why the increase is proposed. For a reinstatement fee, what typically happens when we issue a permit, often to a contractor, but as well to a homeowner, the building code requires that a permit is valid for 180 days or 6 months. Our staff go over those requirements when they're issuing the permit so that the homeowner or contractors should already know as part of their licensing that the permit is good for so long. We do allow an extension request if it's issued to us before the permit expiration. We will always extend the permit, especially in COVID times. There's not been a case that I know of where we haven't extended because of the extenuating circumstances of the pandemic. But this minimum fee would be if a permit has gone well beyond that without the request for an extension. The building code does put the onus onto the contractor. I have seen though with us, we make the permit holder aware of, and they sign that they have read and understand these requirements. So once the permit expires without that request for an extension, we're asking that the reinstatement fee be the $100. For plan review, a residential plan review, as for both the under 3,500 and above 3,500 square feet, because of, again, the time that's involved in our staff and the rate that our staff earn, the increase would cover the hours involved in doing the review. With regards to building code, that also includes not just building, but the trades review, the plumbing, electrical, and mechanical. And if the review is not done correctly, I can say from personal experience that that can cause quite a few hiccups and just short of a disaster in the construction process. So these things are, sorry, these fees, we are asking for your consideration only, again, not for the building department to be ahead, just to cover our cost of the staff and the inspectors and what's involved. Does anybody have any other questions for me? If I may, with your permission, Madam Mayor, move on to page 3.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman.
And after page 3, can we take a 10-minute break? Because I think we still got a couple hours left and I need to use the restroom.
We got a couple hours left. Oh, no.
Who
Yes.
said it? Who said a couple hours?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought we was almost done, but okay.
Well, we're not even halfway through the agenda yet, I don't think. So
I
think
don't mind.
it'd be hard.
I don't mind. Page 3 is going to take a half hour, 20 minutes. Why don't we take a break now? Unless I can get up and go to the bathroom without everybody else going.
I'm
fine with now. We can take one now. That doesn't.
I want to disagree. Let's take a 10-minute. I mean, we can do a 10-minute. I would say a 5 minutes so we can get this.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Fine. 5 minutes. 5-minute
Fine.
break, and let's come back. The time is now 8:38. Let's make it 8:45.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll now take a 5 to 6 minute break. It's not that long. Everyone is back. All the council is back. Okay, now we're back to our special meeting and continuance of our break, from our break. And now we are on the special events and activities and so on. Please continue, Ms. Hardcastle. I think we're gonna do it the way we were talking about. If you don't mind, Councilwoman Moore, if you want to go back to how we were doing it, since we have the original fee schedule, if we have any questions about the changes in pricing, we go directly to that one.
That's fine, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Well, I'm gonna start on the special events activities, because it's $100. The reason I said that, the up price, is because I did a lot of events in Eastpointe and giving to the community with not only my own money, but other people's money as well to help with the community. And then I had to pay the application fee. I had to pay for so many things for the event. And I plan on doing more events in the community, and I probably, I know, being biased, but I do events in the community. As as a councilwoman, I was a councilwoman at the time, and I had to pay. I didn't get a discount because I was a councilwoman. I had to pay these fees. So what I'm saying is that is kind of high price when you're doing a city event and you're getting priced to do a service for the community that you live in. That was my only, opinion on that. And want to know why that price was, higher than the norm. I know we didn't have any events last year due to COVID. I don't see us having none this year as much. And so I don't know the total of events that we had the year before. And so I don't think we had that many special events to have an upcharge in $25. I wonder why that was an upcharge.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
I do know that for charitable events or special events of that nature, the city does have the ability to waive the cost of that. That was done, it's my understanding, with the Guyana House when they had their special event with the drive-by nativity scene. The reason that we proposed this and discussing with Ms. Van Haren what's required in reviewing the special event application, that it has to be reviewed by our public safety director, our DPW director, our fire marshal, and that it does go before the council for their approval. So the increase in proposed cost just took into account all of the different hands that had to touch this and eyes that had to review and the time and cost involved in that.
The time and cost to review a special event. Just for instance, I did that yoga event in the park right there. I don't know the name of that park. It's just a small park. I had to pay the application fee, and I had to pay the yoga instructor, and then the food, and that was that was a community event. So I'm just saying, when people want to do something special for, Nagiana's house is a 501c3, so I can understand that, and so they have their own private money. But when you have a resident that's coming out and doing special events in the community to bring the community together, and then upcharging them and plus their supplies, that's why I'm looking at that in that way.
I understand, Madam Mayor, and that the thought behind this, though, again, was the requirement that the city has for the different department heads to review and look into the impact it will have, whether it's public safety or the roads, or if our DPW needs to come out and provide support in as much as barricades or cones for the road. It's just the different, and you're absolutely right, Madam Mayor, in bringing up the point that different special events require different things. But overall, as a whole, and talking with Ms. Van Haren, this was something that we thought would be a reasonable increase. But I leave all of those decisions to you, the council.
Okay. Now, what other special events? Like, I know we're thinking about having the Gratiot cruise. I know that's not set in stone yet. Now, would that be like that's a citywide event? Now, will we have to charge that? I mean, that's a city event, I know.
No, Madam Mayor, that would be something, because it's done by the city, that there would be no cost for. Just similarly with, as Mary advised me, anything that's charitable or community involved, even leading right into if it's something with the school. It's my understanding that the city did not charge for those, that they did the review.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I know for the Memorial Day parade every year, believe it's the Knights of Columbus, not the Knights of Columbus. Yeah, the Knights of Columbus pull the permit and pay the permit fee. So even though it's a city event, we're still pulling a permit. And I believe that the Gratiot Cruise pays for their permit also. So
We did.
and the charges for like DPW and things like that, that's all paid separate. That's a separate cost from the actual permit application.
If I could jump in here, Madam Mayor, we did pay a fee for the Gratiot Cruise. So,
Right. And that's something that is for the community. You don't get nothing out of it, but seeing people happy. It's no money that's, given back to you or anything like that. I think, when you have an event and people are raising money or getting money or something, I think, it should be a certain cost, but to charge for a Gratiot Cruise and Memorial Park and up the price for people who giving service to the community, I don't.
Yeah.
Charge. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right. Madam Mayor, if I could ask a question. Now I know it's a little thing, and back in the day, somebody's going to kill me for saying back in the day, but that's okay. I'm me. We charged $1 for the first garage sale permit and $5 for the second. So 2 questions. Why are we charging 10 and 15? And my other question is, if the first one is 10, why are we charging $5 more for the second one if you don't do any more work than you did on the first one?
That's true. You probably didn't make that much the first one. That's why you had a second one. So if I didn't make no money the first one, I'm trying to sell the rest of my items on the second one.
Well,
You gotta make your $10 back from the first one to have the second one.
Well, people do those things because maybe they need money. So you didn't answer my question. Why are we charging 10 and 15? And even more importantly, why is the second one more valuable than the first one when you don't take any more work to type one out for the second one?
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam
You may.
Mayor, thank you, Councilman.
No, it's Harvey's asking a question, not the Madam Mayor.
Harvey, back in the day, I don't know that our staff, was paid, I'm sure it was a living wage for the time, but because of the cost of having, of the clerks doing the processing, they receive the application, they process it, it's reviewed, then a permit's issued. My understanding in discussions with Mary, the thought was typically if there are signs placed out, the ordinance will have to go pull the signs if they're not removed on the following Monday. I'm trying to paraphrase the conversation that Mary and I had, but it was, there are particular residents, without naming names, that have garage sales on a regular basis to the point of becoming street vendors and nuisances to their neighbors. So I think that when this was established, sir, the thought was that many families would have one garage sale in a year. But when that continued on, we have some residents that have had neighbor complaints because of the increase in traffic and the nuisance and the invasion of their peaceable enjoyment of their house, street, block, that not that it's a deterrent by any means, sir, but that there was a sliding scale, so to speak. Not to be a deterrent or preventative, but just with the thought again of there's the cost to do this review and issue the permit, and many families will have one. Some particular residents like to have one every weekend, sir.
Well, Ms. Hardcastle, our ordinance is limited to 2 per calendar year, or well, per 12-month period, I guess is what it says. You shouldn't be having one every weekend anyway.
Unfortunately, sir, we have some residents that do. And
Well,
We shouldn't be allowing it.
Hardcastle, if I may, I believe what Mr. Hurley's saying though is you're right, some residents may do, but the ones that are actually coming and pulling the permit, obviously they're only allowed to pull 2 per year. So why are they paying more to cover the cost for the people who are breaking the law and not pulling the permit? So I guess that was his question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do a very good job of
I mean,
answering it.
that's the way I looked at it. It's like, because I mean, I've come and pulled many garage sale permits, and it takes the clerk, you know, in the building department, maybe, you know, two minutes to type that up, and then I go across and I pay for it, which maybe takes another minute. So I mean, it's probably maybe a 5-minute process to get a garage sale permit.
I'm thinking anything that has to do, like we did with the swimming pool, things that have to do family oriented, we shouldn't have to be upping prices, like the special events and activities and the garage sales. That's stuff that we do as a family time. We've been doing that for years. And I don't think it's too many people that do chicken keeping.
No, I stopped raising chickens a long time ago, back in the 40s.
Yeah, I stopped last week, so.
But I understand what you're saying, and I understand what Sarah's saying too. If we know, and it sounds like you know who they are, if they're having a garage sale every week, then maybe we ought to change it where they're going to either tear it down and stop or get them a fine.
Yeah.
And absolutely, if I'm going to pay $25 to have 2 garage sales a year, and this person that you know of has once a week, if they have 50 garage sales and they're not paying a fee, then.
Right, Councilman Curley, and I agree, because if we're charging them twice, then maybe we should have a line item that said if you have additional garage sales beyond this, then you're charged an additional fee. It should be a fee for those that go beyond that, you know, the ordinance. That should be another line item.
Well, that'd be a completely different, that'd be a fine. I mean, they should be, you know, we can give them a civil infraction for a fine,
Yeah.
probably for that.
Yeah, that's
Breaking the
probably what it
ordinance.
should be.
The
You're right.
issue that we've run into, Madam Mayor, is the garage sales being on the weekend. Often if it's one that doesn't have a permit issued, because neighbors can look up online in our BSNA system, they make a complaint. And, you know, in the past, and what I've heard or been told was that because the ordinance officers didn't work on the weekend, that Friday at 5 o'clock, all of the flags and signs go out that businesses use beyond their allowed signage, and that the garage sales and activity begins because of the awareness that there is not an ordinance officer in the community. That is one of the things that I'll be bringing to council and asking to change. In other communities, I have worked on the weekends and more than covered my salary based on the number of stop work orders or contractors that I caught doing work without a permit. Which was something that another community and I worked with had a problem with, and then addressed by assigning me to work on alternating Saturdays and Sundays. So it's just as Councilman DeMonico said, it is limited in our ordinance, but enforcement has been difficult.
And how do you enforce that when someone does have, you know, more than 2? I mean, do you give them a ticket? Because I hate to give a person a civil infraction of $250 for a garage sale worth of $50 worth of stuff, you know, if that, you know. So how do you just let them know, probably pretty much just, you know, let them know what's going on, they can't do it. And then if you go back, it's still there, what is done?
A violation is issued, Madam Mayor. We have not ticketed, you know, but we do have residents that will remain unnamed that even beyond their second garage sale, make it well known that they're going to keep having them every weekend. And it does become a nuisance to their neighbors, and we do hear about it. And I empathize with that, the increase in traffic and activity. So I appreciate that the ordinance has limited it to 2 in a year. And I understand Councilman Curley's position that with the cost being more, I'm very impressed though to hear that they were able to turn around a permit in the amount of time, or the short time that Councilwoman Lucido shared with us, because that isn't always the case based on their workload and, their availability and what else is going on in our department. So I'm happy to hear that was so streamlined for you. And that isn't always the case though with the workload that we've got or what they're working on. So if council sees fit to leave, or.
Well,
So I guess my question is, are we just leaving special events to 75, garage sales to 5 and 10? I mean, I remember Mr. Curley when they were $1 and $5, but I'm fine with leaving them at the 5 and 10. That was, I believe.
well, wouldn't, bottom line, I know maybe we talked too long on this because we've got a lot to go through. Wouldn't it be nice if the first permit was $10 and the second permit was $10?
What about 5 and 10?
I think the 5 and 10 is fine where it was before.
So you don't want to go back.
I believe actually, Mr. Curley, when I started on council, it was 1 and 5. And then we increased it to 5 and 10. Now we're raising it to 10 and 15.
Yeah, that was 1 and 5 was decades
low.
ago.
Back in the day.
Yeah, that was so long ago that Sarah was still in elementary school, I think.
So to move on, I wrote down to keep special events at 75, garage sales at 5 and 10. Is that correct, everyone?
Yeah, and keeping the chicken keeping permit at 75. How many people that keep, chicken.
5 and 10, is that what you're saying, Sarah?
My neighbors will be happy.
Right, yeah, 5 and 10. The chicken permit, if 75 or 100, that's a little bit different because the building department's actually coming out to your house to do an inspection. So I don't mind the $100 for the chicken permit, but if everyone else wants to keep it at 75, that's fine.
Yeah, 75 is
75
fine.
for what?
Yeah, we could keep it at 75 for the chicken keeping permit.
I think though, but one question from Councilman Curley, I think hasn't been answered, and I'll have like a similar one later, I think, with some items. Why do we even charge different for first and second garage sales? Isn't it the same exact amount of work? Like what's the?
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like we just want to make sure too. I mean, some of these fees, if they're too high, people are just gonna skip out on them anyway. So we might as well keep some of these lower and people actually get them. I mean, they always all should, but if a garage sale permit was $100, nobody's gonna grab one and they're just gonna try and have one and not get caught, right? So.
All right, so then we'll do 10 and 10. I'm fine with that.
All right.
So the special events and activity is 75 plus $5, so that stays the same. The chicken keep-in permit is $75. The garage sale is 10 and 10.
5 and 10.
5 and 10.
Oh.
No, I think we decided 10 and 10 because we wanted to keep it the same for both.
Yeah, I guess I'm hearing double. I thought I just heard from 4 people, 5 and 10. Now I'm hearing 10 and 10.
I don't know.
Mr. Curley and Mr. DeMonico said 10 and 10, so I was going back to 10 and 10. It doesn't matter to me either way.
Are we going to just keep it the same like we did the special events and the chicken keeping and make it 5 and 10?
I think so.
Since we kept the other two the same too?
I like 5 and 10.
Me too.
Okay.
Since I brought it up, you guys should listen to me.
But yeah, I thought you were saying they should be the same though, but whatever. I don't care at this point.
Listen, we talk about this. If we talk about this for another 2 minutes, I'm going to suggest $1 and $2. Back from 72. Okay, 5 and 10. I think we agreed on that, right? Next, what's the next item?
Yeah, Councilman DeMonico, are you writing down these changes? Because I think I want you to do the motion.
I'm trying to highlight them. I'll try later.
I have them written down.
You got them? Okay.
Yeah, I've been writing them too.
I'm not doing the motions tonight. I'm just making suggestions.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, and with everything else, you want to keep it as
Thank
such?
you. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Councilman Harvey.
Anybody else see something on this page that you want to keep or change?
Nope, I'm ready to move to page 4.
All agree with that?
Okay.
Sounds good. Now, on page 4, we are on vacant structures.
All right. hold on a second.
And I have no questions on this page.
I do have a suggestion. Now, we have had in Eastpointe, we have had vacant structures on Kelly Road, on Gratiot, and these people leave it there for years. And on here, it says property vacant in excess of 2 years, they pay $100. I think that is very low. I do. I think if we bring it up higher, these people will make sure that these buildings are filled if they are paying some money. I mean, they're just leaving a building vacant for 2 or 3 or 5 years, 6 years, and you have to pay what, $300? And it's costing the city a bad look. People are moving away. Our image is looking bad because people just want to leave these buildings empty for whatever reason, and I think it should be higher than $100. I don't know if council thought about these properties that just sat vacant. I've been in Eastpointe for almost 12 years now, and some of these buildings been sitting there for over 4 years, just sitting there. And they're just, for a year, they don't pay $200. They have the money to sit there. So, even for instance, the big boy that's been sitting there, that's been sitting there for a while now, and different other locations that's sitting vacant, and no one is, I don't know what their plans are. I don't want to say they're not doing anything, but after 2 years, I feel like something should be in some action. Businesses want to be put in some of these buildings, and some of these business owners. I know Ms. Holman been working with a lot of these business owners who own these vacant structures, and they don't want to put anybody in there. They just want to sit on these buildings. And I don't know why, what their reason being is, and I said fill them, but it's making the city look bad, and it's our city is starting to look vacant, not just the structures. So is there is that the only price that you could think of? What other cities?
If I had my way, Madam Mayor, it would be a renewal of the full amount. But I did not want the council to think that, I was overreaching by any means, but I couldn't agree with you more. And there's a lot of work involved from an ordinance enforcement perspective in overseeing these vacant structures. There's windows broken into, they're typically not shoveling the snow and they're not cutting the grass. So it does create more work on our department. And I would love for the council to increase, and instead of even allowing a renewal, to require a new registration once that's lapsed, similar to the rental registration program.
How much?
Yeah, I would support that. I think that's a great idea, Madam Mayor and Ms. Hardcastle.
What's the highest we can go? They might put somebody in there tomorrow. How much? How much were you thinking as far as charging them? Can they do a yearly, renewal fee, so we can make sure that lets us know what business is in there, and we can keep the city knowledgeable of what business that they have in the city. And if it's going to be vacant, it keeps us connected with that business owner. If it's going to be vacant for a year, if it's not, I just think we have to be better connected to these businesses, and they should not just be sitting empty, in our city like this. So come up with a cost that'll let them know that Eastpointe won't allow this anymore.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I would say $500.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Madam Mayor, if I can ask a question, let me clarify this in my own mind. I agree with the 500. You have a vacant building, and they are remodeling it. Would that fall under that, or they are doing something to the building? It's not just, like you said, Mayor, sitting there for 3, 4, 5 years. So they're working on a building on the inside, or if it's registered for sale, would that still fall under the $500? Are we just talking about a building that's been sitting there for years, and we all know who they are?
Yeah, we all know who they are. And I know the big boys was having some ideas and doing something with that. So I just made that as one of them, because I remember me and my kids going to that one, and then it closed after we moved here, and it's been sitting there for a while. So I don't know what they're going to move forward in doing. So not just pointing them out, but other locations. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we do have a location in the city that changes the frontage of it, the design, but it's never occupied. So one year they're changed the name, the signage, it looks beautiful, but no one's ever in there. They've been doing that for like 4 years now. So sometimes people play games and act like they're doing something to it and don't actually do stuff. And I've seen that a lot in other cities that we're in, and they're playing like they're, you know, you really don't know what business they're doing. They're trying to play like they're doing business, and they're really not. And so, you know, and I don't want to put names and stuff out there like that, because, but we know who those businesses are. And so, you know, and we know what the vacant business, the eyesores are in our city. So it's time for us to do something about it, you know, not trying to overcharge and get nobody back. That's not what we're doing as a city, or name dropping. We're just saying we see these buildings in our city that are obvious, and we want something done to those buildings. And, you know, and so, and since if nothing is done to those buildings, then we have to keep up with it. And we feel like as a city, our taxpayer money shouldn't always go into fixing up other people's buildings. And we have to drive past these buildings every day. So I think $500 is fair, because we haven't did it in all these years.
And Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so to answer Councilman Curley's question, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Hardcastle, but if a building that's standing vacant and then they started working on it, they should start pulling permits, correct?
Yes, Councilman, Councilwoman Moore, I was gonna say, if a property has open and active permits.
Right, and then once they start pulling permits, they only have 180 days to fulfill those permits, so they will fall into that category. And if they don't fulfill those, then they will actually incur other penalties, because they would have to answer to us as to why they hadn't fulfilled it, to ask for an extension. So now they're in the system and they're being monitored. And we can actually, once they're in the system for pulling permits and actually not doing anything within an ample amount of time, then we can put extra, you know, say, okay, if you're not doing anything to it, we're not going to extend your permit anymore. You have to have this done by a certain time, or you will be penalized. And, you know, whatever we do past that time legally to the people that are the owners of it. There are wonderful ways to go through this from this point, I believe, because once, like I said, they start pulling permits, they're in the system, and they would have to do that. So I also believe the $500 would get them to start. And even with a company that would change signs or change facades every few years, that wouldn't be enough, because they would have to pay that $500, or even whatever the initial fee is going up to $300, I see. But yeah, I think that we should do the $500 for anything that's sitting over and I don't think that we should have it as 2 years. I think it should be 1 year. I think we should lower that.
I agree.
To 1 year and assess a $500 fee, because as noted, there are tons, well, I won't say tons, but there are many vacant structures in Eastpointe, and the people are not doing anything with them. And not only are the structures falling down, the surrounding parking lots, and other things are crumbling around them. So we definitely want to encourage someone to complete their building or rent it out to someone who will complete it.
Does this section not apply to homes also?
That's true.
So we're gonna charge the order $500.
Well, I think
that's different when it comes. Yeah, that's different.
Well, but if we change this, it would apply to both, right?
That's true.
I think it would apply to both also.
Well,
commercial property, residential, can't we? We can
yeah, we could, because there are investors who are sitting on investment properties who are not doing anything to those either. If
No,
it's
I
vacant,
agree
it's
with that.
vacant.
there are certainly enough buildings out there, and I won't get into residential right now, but commercial buildings that we could go after right away. But if whoever's keeping it to make a motion on it, this is all the first reading tonight anyway, but we have to get back next meeting for the second reading, correct? Am I correct on that, Madam Mayor? This is the
Yes,
first
sir.
reading?
The
Okay,
first
so,
reading.
so I would suggest that the building official, that she can write up a, whatever, what we call an ordinance or whatever, or Richard would. So we know exactly what it looks like in writing. I mean, we're throwing a lot of things around, like, questions. When would you start? If you knock on the door and said, okay, tomorrow you got to pay $500. Is that what we've got to do? Or you have whatever many days to do it? Well, look, come on in. I just told the ceiling off because it was water damage. So they're doing something to it. You can't sell it when there's no ceiling. So there's a lot of if and buts that we have to take a look at as well. I don't want to jump on somebody if they're actually repairing and doing demolition and are going to fix the building up.
Yeah, I agree, but that'd be a communication between them and the building, director, councilman.
I think she's got to make that decision herself. That's
Right, exactly. But predominantly what we're talking about is the ones that we've all seen, most of residents seen the last couple of years that's been sitting there and want to see progress in the city. And I think this is the first step in seeing that.
And
And
Mayor,
hold on one second. And then also, of course, a lot of vacant buildings have been sitting from COVID. So we have to put that in consideration too, of course. I know you would do that anyway. So putting that in consideration for that last year and this year, because a lot of businesses probably can't open how they want to until the governor does, what she feels is best for the state as far as opening. Some people don't feel like it's a benefit for them to open right now with, with a percentage, and it's not, cost efficient enough for them to do it. So those businesses are different than the ones that's been sitting there before COVID. And then you also want to do a residential one because some people just can't sell their houses. Maybe it's too overpriced. Maybe they are trying to, or whatever, or whatever. So residential and commercial would be two different things. I'll let you put your experience and expertise on that. Yes, sir, Mr. Albright.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I was looking at the city's ordinance, and the ordinance does not make a distinction between commercial or residential properties, but it does have two different definitions, one for vacant property and one for abandoned vacant property. And the definition for vacant property means an improved lot or parcel of real property with at least one building or structure that is not currently used or occupied for a period in excess of 30 days. A building or structure which remains furnished, has utilities connected or in use, and on property that is maintained while the owner is absent shall not be considered vacant. And so that is the definition for vacant property. Abandoned vacant property is a little bit longer, and that means a vacant property that has been vacant for 30 days or more and meets any of the following criteria, and there are 6 of them. 1, provides a location for loitering, vagrancy, unauthorized entry, or other criminal activity. 2, has 1 or more broken or boarded windows. 3, has taxes in arrears for a period of time exceeding 365 days. 4, has utilities disconnected or not in use. 5, is not maintained in compliance with city ordinances, codes, or state law. And 6, is only partially completed and is not fit for human occupancy. So those are the 2 definitions that the city currently has for either vacant properties or abandoned vacant properties.
Those 2 examples, thank you for reading that. Those 2 examples sound like residential, because when you talk about 30 days, that sounds more residential compared, when you're talking about properties.
Yeah, it says
30 days, 30 days sound like a house. And then if it's abandoned, a house or something like that. But like you said, it doesn't distinct whether it's residential or commercial in our charter, correct?
Right. In the definition section, it does not. But when you look up to that's for anybody listening, it's section 10-213. But in section 10-212, it does say that this provisions of this article, which 10-213 is also included, shall apply to all existing residential, commercial, and industrial structures.
Okay, and Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes, ma'am, please.
When I was actually doing, working the census last year in 2020, there are, several, investment properties that are owned by investment companies, that are houses, that residents, because as a census taker, if the person didn't answer the door, we would go to their neighbor and ask them if they knew anything about the people, at the other address. And more than once, I was told that several addresses had been empty for years. No one had been there, weeds were overgrown or whatever. And it's just an empty house. So there are investors who are sitting on houses too, who are not doing anything to them also.
You're correct. I think we experienced that in the last show cause hearing with, I don't think you have had the courtesy of getting into one, but you will see how that works. And we deal with a lot of those investors that live out the country and own houses in Eastpointe. And we have to continuously serve them or try to serve them and clean up their property. And the next door neighbor is, having to deal with that, So maybe we need to do both. That's something that we all can look into.
Yes.
Council. Anything else you guys see on here? I mean, when I seen that part, that was what I stuck to the whole time when I thought about these buildings. I didn't even, that was my whole thing. Like, how can I make sure these buildings are filled? And when I seen that $100, I said, that's not going to do it.
Well, Madam Mayor, right now I wrote down my suggestion of the properties vacant in excess of 2 years, additional fees per year, that we should change it to 1 year, and that it should be $500.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
My only concern with 1 year is, there are homes that are going through probate if there's a death or something like that. Or even like Councilman Monaco, I think, brought up, like if there's a recession or something like that, like you might not be able to sell your house that quick. Like sometimes it just takes longer. And even with a building, an owner of a building could pass away and that could even go into probate. And then you're going through court time and, to give those people some time. I think the 2 year mark, I would prefer staying with the 2 year. I'm fine with increasing it to the 500. But I think the 2 year, just that way it gives everyone, there's no reason after 2 years. I feel like then you don't really have an excuse anymore.
I think after 1 year, you should somewhat be able to communicate with the building department, say, this is what's going on. And I think that is what has kept us with these properties how they are, because they don't communicate with the building department. I don't know if you agree with me, Ms. Hardcastle, or not, but you guys don't have a good communication with the building owners. And after 2 years, you really don't have it. You know what I'm saying? I think the communication should be yearly. Every year you should be able to contact them. Okay, what are you doing with this building? Okay, I just got a divorce, or it's in probate, and then we're lenient. We're not going to, charge those fees, because we're actually just setting up, Councilwoman, we're setting up the fee schedule, but at the end of the day, she's going to be the judge of charging them due to what they're going through. So all the things that you said, I'm taking account into that, and she will too. And then we'll be lenient towards that, if you understand.
Mr. Albright?
Yes.
I have a question for you. So would Ms. Hardcastle, unless we wrote an ordinance giving her permission to be lenient, she wouldn't have the ability to do so on her own, right? If it's an ordinance form and there's a fee schedule, doesn't she have to stick by that? Or would she have that ability without us updating our ordinance to give her the ability to give that leniency?
I would recommend under the circumstances that if the council is considering providing Ms. Hardcastle with that type of discretion, that should be part of the actual ordinance itself.
So now I feel like we're talking about a whole nother discussion beyond like the fee schedule, because now we're talking about writing an ordinance. So I mean, I don't know, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
So-
that discussion could take place at a future regularly scheduled city council meeting about possibly just amending the vacant property registration and maintenance ordinance, which is currently codified in the Code of Ordinances.
I don't know if we should do all that because even though we're in all these fee scheduling and even in policing, we have laws and we have things out there that we have policies that we do. But as individuals and human beings, we are lenient toward what we see and what we deal with every day. We don't have to make a policy on being lenient with people. That's just human nature. If a person says, this is what's going on, we should have to write a policy about being lenient and having a heart. I don't think we should have to write a amendment on that. I mean,
I would only recommend it from like a legal standpoint to like just cover, like if she doesn't have the power, and then one person she gives leniency to, and the next person she doesn't, because she doesn't believe that it's necessary, and then they take that to court, like, and then she doesn't even have the power to do it. Like, I would just do it to like protect herself if we were to give her that ability. That was my only thing, is to cover our building department from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, but all that would be documented. Just like we do show cause hearing. Anytime we're lenient on those people as well, when they say they're going to fix certain things, we don't always charge them. We are lenient on them every time we have a show cause hearing. And then they show us paperwork that they're fixing up their house. They show us paperwork that they pay for the repairs. They showed us documentation. If it's not written, it doesn't exist. That's what I was taught. So if they're giving her the paperwork and showing that they're doing the work, or these are the things going on, they can't show it. It's not happening. She has to charge them. That's all I'm saying. But council, anybody else have anything to say? I mean, this is me and Councilwoman Moore agreeing, but we have 3 other people that we have to, make sure that everybody's in agreement before we move forward with this, how this goes. Councilman Crow, oh, I thought you raised his hand.
I think he's talking. I think he's muted.
He's on mute.
Okay, Councilman Crowley.
No, I'm back. Thank you. Guys, let's face it. We got, how many code enforcement officers do we have? And here's the question. Have they ever had the occasion to say, I'm sorry, page 23, line 21 says, I have to give you this $500 ticket. They have discretionary policy, I'm sure they, as well. So we don't know that they do, but so they have that too. But I think the building official needs that discretionary policy. But Sarah's right. If the building official says, well, okay, I'll give you another 3 months, and it says you get a year, there's circumstances that she feels that they deserve the extra 3 months. And somebody says, well, you were at Harvey Curley's house and you gave him an extra 3 months to fix his garage. How come I got a ticket and I didn't get the extra 3 months? So this whole discretionary thing has got to be, they got to be allowed to do that.
I don't argue that either way. Like I said, I agree with Councilwoman Lucido, as well as I definitely agree with Councilwoman Moore in saying, we can, up in the price and change it to 1 year. Now, if you want to have it to her discretion to do the 1 year, we can do that at another time, correct?
No, I agree. We could do that another time. But I just got, just really quick, if I could just know where Mr. Curley and Mr. DeMonico's head is, if they want to do change it to 1 year from 2 years, I guess, so we know what the majority is before so I can write it down.
Oh, yeah. Please, Councilman DeMonico, still
I'm
there?
fine with keeping 2 years.
Okay. Councilman Crowley, 1 or 2 years.
Well, I think under the circumstance, I think 1 year is not going to be enough. I think 2 years.
Okay. So we don't have to do the discretion then, because you want to keep, so the majority rules. So we all agreed that the $500 is sufficient, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just saying, we had this policy for how long? When was the last time this policy was changed?
I believe we updated it like 3 years ago, Councilman DeMonico, was it?
Yeah. I think
Okay,
we've
the
done
fee
that
schedule.
at least once since we've been on council.
Yeah, I know at least once we've done this.
Was it this part? That's what I'm saying. The reason I bring that up is because if we didn't, if we wasn't progressive then, or the year before that, and we have continued to see our city falter, then the 2 years to me would not change a lot. And that's what I'm saying, so.
And I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm
Go
sorry, Tim, go ahead.
If I may, I also believe that we'll just have business as usual. People paid $500 and it'll just continue to go on.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's a, it's a step in the right direction. So we got the $500. I'm glad all the council agreed with that. So
I'm against, I guess. I don't know if everybody.
Oh, the $500, you're against it?
Yeah.
How much you think it should be, sir?
Well, I didn't want to lengthen the conversation on this, but frankly, I think we've got other things, like if someone's keeping up their vacant structure well, especially talking about a home, we shouldn't be charging extra, but probably even the more important thing is how much work are we doing? We can only charge how much work it actually takes to do this item. I don't know, is there $500 worth of work all of a sudden after 2 years? I guess that's one point. And then, I mean, hopefully nobody's got a vacant property and we're using our property after 2 years. But I think if like a business is in neglect or something, there's other ordinances that are going to address that, not just this one part of the fee schedule.
So you're saying keep it at 100? You was thinking that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's, I guess, yeah, that's my vote right now. But of course, whatever
I mean, we have the majority, but as mayor, I always like to hear what everybody has to say. That's just how I am, because your thoughts might make me think of something different. You know what I'm saying? And so everybody has an opinion, but you want to always try to hear another person out to, it might help you make a better decision. That's why I like to hear what everybody has to say. So, but you say 5, and Ms. Hardcastle, going toward what Councilman DeMonico said about the $500, he made a good point. That's why I'm glad he said that about, I feel like some of the charges that after a year and after 2 years is well over the $100 we have spent on keeping that property up. But what do you think about that in regards to what he just said?
Madam Mayor?
Councilman, can she answer this question first?
What was, what, the question was what, 500 or 100?
Oh, no, that wasn't the question. Councilman DeMonico was saying, is it feasible to charge somebody $100 if that's not, what it accumulates to? And so I was asking Ms. Hardcastle, does it accumulate to the $500 that we put in to making sure that vacant building is looking a certain way?
Okay.
Madam Mayor, absolutely, yes. Between monitoring it from the ordinance department standpoint to the cost of boarding it up, to tracking and trimming the lawn and doing the snow removal, it can be in excess of that. If council would like to call out and specify that buildings are 500 and residential properties are homes or 300, that's something that again would still fall in line with, but I do agree, and in discussions with Mary and considering where time was spent and where costs were, I would definitely ask the council to consider this increase.
Okay, Councilman Crowley, did you have anything else?
Well, I was just going to ask a kind of a question, and we get these homes from Macomb County, right?
Yes,
because
sir.
of delinquent taxes. And so my question, if this house is still vacant after 1 year, are we going to find ourselves $300 or $300 or $500 that we're going to write ourselves a ticket for that amount if it's been over a year?
If I may, Councilman Curley, no, one of the things that we do is work very closely with Ms. Holman as the Economic Development Director to not only track these properties, but to work with her. And the properties that come to mind right off the bat are the ones that Habitat have been involved in. And we do, as a community, a permit issued with no cost. So we would monitor that, but we would not charge, of course, sir, a fee to ourselves.
Any other questions, council, on this
No.
page?
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry, sir.
Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. That was a good question. The question I asked is the stupid one, right? Any other questions on this page?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, actually about a long time ago, I think we talked about like zoning board of appeals meetings and stuff like that. And I was told the main reason for such a high fee for the meeting was that we put it in the paper. Is that, and that of course costs money. Is this mainly the reason? And I guess I've been pitching to our state rep and senator that we have, varying posting requirements, because I mean, I'd like someone to even point out to me if they've ever seen a ZBA thing in the Macomb Daily before, right? Only like 10% of Eastpointe even receives it, but yet we're spending hundreds of dollars every time we have to put something in the paper. That's a whole different issue, not for today, because we can't do anything about that. But is that the main reason, like the ZBA meeting is $500 and like things like that?
Councilman, with the ZBA and the Planning Commission, it's not just the cost of doing the notice. There's a requirement for us to send out for ZBA, I believe it's, and even planning, or particularly ZBA that's coming to mind, addresses within 300 feet. There's the communication that goes back and forth between our department and Ms. Haw, our planner, as well as the applicant. And then we often act as the go-between for the architect or engineer and do plan review in-house in conjunction with Ms. Ha. So there's a number of different things that come into play. I know with regards to the Planning Commission, our department tracks, and when we're able to, we refund a portion of or what was unused that was that's given as a deposit. But for ZBA, with regards to having the not just the staff doing all of the preparation with the agendas and notices and going back and forth, once again here, and I hate to sound repetitive, but to cover the cost of our staff, be it the clerical or the inspector or plan reviewer, and then the outsourcing that we do for the planner to provide us with a review.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think just maybe I'm thinking of like one common thing was like someone wants a privacy fence on a corner and they try to get an appeal, and it just seems very expensive to just try and put up a privacy fence. But maybe our better option, instead of changing this fee, would just be to, maybe we need to revisit like an ordinance that goes to the ZBA over and over and over again or something. So maybe I'm fine with leaving it as is then. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was looking at the special use approval for a meeting. I wanted to keep it at 400. The reason I said that, I remember a young lady who now has her third business in Eastpointe and wanted to get that special land use approval. I might be saying the wrong one, but I remember dealing with a lot of people that want to bring their business here in Eastpointe and having a special use approval. And sometimes these fees can be high when you're trying to start a new business and get a special land use and do all these inspections. And, and due to COVID, people are trying to really get themselves back on track. And that is why I didn't really want to, you know, when it comes to certain businesses that, you know, saw a loss in COVID and trying to, you know, bring their business to Eastpointe per se. And during this time, don't want to try to charge them an extra fee that is already $400. That's what I was just thinking. I don't know if council thought about that at all. But the special land use is already $400, and then on here, the new price is $500.
Yes, my thought, I think we'd need to probably keep those somewhat similar for all the reasons Ms. Hardcastle said, and, you know, hopefully a lot of these be offset by running, you know, business. I guess that's just my opinion.
Okay. Okay, so you guys want to go ahead and move along to page 5? You're almost there.
Sure, I love that idea.
Did I see anything on page 5 that you?
I
I have no concerns on page 5.
Me.
think page 5 is beautiful.
Page 5 is beautiful, but coming from a construction background, Councilwoman Moore, do you have anything you would like?
I plead fifth.
I have a very simple question, not about enough. What is the point? What is the point even of that top? Why do the contractor license? I mean, don't they contract through the state? Why do we even charge like an extra fee that they got to pay like each individual city they ever work in?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
That just seems, I don't know.
These prices are actually, compared to other communities, extremely low. And I hate to use the word cost of doing business to borrow a quote from you, Councilman DeMonico, but with regards to, they have to provide us their license and insurance. And what this does, it enables us as a department, if we need to have their information to issue a ticket, and in the worst case scenario that they do violate building codes or fail to comply, that we have their registration and information, not just, you know, having to go on the Department of Licensing and Regulations website to track them down, that we've got their information here and available to us. It's an annual fee, and in discussing with other trades and other communities, it's more than tripled what we're proposing the increase to be.
Okay, let's leave it as you suggested. That's fine.
Thank you.
And I actually had no problem with this page.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we're almost there. We'll be out of here by 2 a.m. Let me see. Page 6. Now, I'm gonna be real quick for council, don't chew my head off. I'm looking at the standby generator over 30 kW. Please tell me, and under that, what is that all about? Because it said $100. So standby generator, then a special safety inspection for that generator. Is that what it is?
Yes, and that's more, Madam Mayor, of a commercial type generator.
Okay.
And so it would be including or inclusive of, we would look as a building department at the location of the generator with the zoning review, an inspection, typically that it's got a pad on it, and that it's the electric is connected to it properly by our electrical contractor. So that's more of a larger commercial or industrial type grade generator, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else on this page?
I have nothing else.
Moving right along to channel. I said, now you know I'm getting tired. I said the channel 7. Page 7. Anybody see anything that they want to ask Ms. Hardcastle or change?
I have nothing on page 7.
I think it looks beautiful.
Okay, moving right along to page 8. Plumbing fees.
I have nothing for page 8 either.
I'm okay with 8.
Okay. Sounds good. Moving right along. Page 9. Anyone at home can follow right along.
I have nothing for page 9.
Looks good.
We did like 5 pages in like 5 minutes.
I know, I'm getting excited.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are on, what's that, page 10.
Well, no one better have problems with this page.
10, 11, and
I
12
think
look like
flag
it's
license
same.
should be
I think
25 cents more. No, I'm just playing.
10, 10 and 11, yeah. 10,
Charge
11,
them for
12
bike.
looks good.
I
Yeah.
think we're done with the building department.
Yeah, because then we already talked showmobile in 13.
Yeah.
And then we've already removed the tattooist stuff from our ordinances anyway, so that should go. 14.
Now we're on the vendor, what the
Oh,
voter.
did I pass?
I
Oh,
have page 17. Well,
We're on
we're talking
14.
about the water bills.
We're gonna do the voter listing on listing labels. What's that, page 14, you all?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm fine with that price. That's usually used for us.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
did,
Can't get it on labels anymore.
I did have a question though about, well, I see that one we changed to weekly for the AV report by email. I didn't know, I wanted to make sure we were just following whatever is required by FOIA or, if the state, I think, could you get them daily before for the AV report? And now we're only going to allow weekly. Is that what that means?
Well, that's a recommendation from our clerks who really do all the work from Kimmy. So it can be weekly or daily, but I think weekly just kind of puts it in perspective and doesn't have them jumping on a daily basis.
It looks like you can still get it daily if you get a paper copy.
Yeah, I guess so.
For a small fee.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, there's nothing free. Let me see. Moving right along. I'm actually having a lot of fun with you all and the residents today, going over this fee scheduling tonight.
The next one I see is page 17, liquor license.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that increase.
Yeah, we want to make sure they are doing what the law says.
I thought there was there was a liquor license fee on a different page. What was
I thought I saw that too.
I think something with the police or
This
something.
was with police, I think. So I think we already discussed this.
Yeah.
Yeah, top of page 3. That's just for special inspections permits. And then what's the difference between these two, I guess?
Yeah, the sidewalk program. Okay, yeah.
Like the fourth line on page 3, what's the difference between that and the one on 17?
If I may, Councilman DeMonico, oops, that's what I was going to relay, Councilwoman Moore. It's the inspection that the building department would conduct. Again, receiving the application, going out to the site, performing an inspection, providing a write-up and follow-up, versus on page 17, this is the application for and processing of.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we go any further, I think we're pretty much done with this, and we're definitely done with the building department. So can I make a motion for the building department? Because I believe we went through all the building department ones.
Yeah, you guys want to go ahead and.
So, yeah, Madam Mayor, I will motion when it comes to the fee schedule to keep the charge for above ground pool, the chickens, garage sales and special events the same as they were in the previous fee schedule, and changed properties vacant in excess of 2 years to an additional fee of $500.
Can I get support? Support. Okay. by Councilman Curley. Motion with support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Well, since it's all put in together, I still like the 1 year. But since it's all like one motion, I'd have to say yes on the other, so.
Mayor Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
We will get there, Councilwoman Moore. Let's see how this works. We will get there. Going to parks discussion. This was brought up by Ms. Dunn. Why was this? I believe all the council read the discussion, but was this put on here because someone wants to go back to the regular way, or?
No, this was, I believe it was discussed in the past, and Ms. Lucido had shared that she'd like to hear a little bit more tonight about whether or not it would be financially feasible for us to bring parks back in-house or continue to use outside services. So we do have our Public Works Department on, and Mr. Marucci's also on. So we'll start with Darren, if you would quickly, and just give the council a brief rundown on what your calculations are, what your opinion is about parks being in-house. If you're awake. You there? Yoo-hoo!
Joe was here a minute ago.
It was here. Well, how about?
I'm here. I'm here.
We thought maybe we lost you.
Okay, no, I'm here. Good evening again, Madam Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So Joe Marucci is with us, and he's the author of the Parks Maintenance Comparison. So I'm gonna let him discuss this with you, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying woke. Mr. Marucci, good, I was about to say good morning, good evening, still evening. How are you?
Joe, you're still muted. Joe, you're still muted.
Is this like the fun meeting tonight, the blooper meeting? Is, you know?
Right, there I go. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and the rest of the City Council. So you have my report in front of you. And maybe the best way is, I don't like to read things to people just because I believe people know how to read and prepare for meetings. But the short of it is, some of the items that were included previously in parks maintenance, and I'll say we've gone through 3 iterations in the last 7 years. Pre-2014, 2014 through 20, and now in 20, where we've segregated out the lawn mowing, we segregated out the snow removal, and the parks maintenance is really that, the park attendants at the 3 parks, as well as the halftime person in the DDA that serves 5 days a week. Very clearly, my recommendation is I would not touch grass mowing and I wouldn't touch snow removal. Excuse me, snow removal. It's just something that we couldn't do right now with the staff that we have. The DDA person at a half a time, there's cost savings there, but I think you really have to wrap it into including some other type of service, because you only have a person for 20 hours a week. Part-timers are allowed to work up to 29.5. You'd be buying a piece of equipment, which really blows the cost and the savings in the first year, because this person would have to get to the job site. And one of the things I stress in my report for both parks maintenance and for really any of the service, but for parks maintenance and the DDA, there is not one extra vehicle here at the DPW for someone to use. The DPW administrative supervisor, which is Carol Apley, and I, we share a vehicle. It works out really well, but we share a vehicle. There's literally not one extra vehicle here. So anything that we would bring in-house would require the purchase of the appropriate amount of vehicles. And that gets obviously very expensive. Of course, the cost could be amortized over 5 or 10 years. We have a habit of keeping our vehicles 10 years because I think we typically do a pretty good job of maintaining them. But you see the costs in there. Right now, we've budgeted for JJ Mish contract, $315,000, 6,000 hours is what we budgeted for the contract. That's not inclusive of the park attendant fees. That's separate. It's spelled out in the contract. I believe that's something like 2,000 hours. I can't recall right now because I don't have the contract in front of me. The park attendant hours are, park attendants are paid $20 an hour, which is significantly less, obviously, than the labor's cost, which is $52 an hour. So I don't know, like I said, I think I've summarized. I'd be glad to answer questions. If there's something in the report that I didn't make clear, I'll attempt to clarify it.
So
If
I have a couple of questions about it. Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
So, I know we're all getting really tired.
I was like, okay, sorry about that.
So this mentions like hiring a bunch of part-time people. Like, I mean, that's what it's basically saying. And 4 of them are only going to be like seasonal part-time employees. So how many part-time employees do we have in DPW right now?
4.
Okay. What's the, like, how long have they worked for the city, these part-time employees?
I would say the maximum 3, 4, 5 years.
That's my, especially when it comes to like a seasonal part-time employee, like, I think they're not easy to come by. You know, I mean, I would be concerned about staffing this with all part-time employees. So from my point of view, I don't think bringing it in-house is going to be this reasonable, because I think we're going to end up having to hire more of these employees to be full-time. We're going to find out, because these part-time employees aren't going to last. Like, people want full-time.
And you saw the cost of one full-time employee at the assistant supervisor level comes out to $144,000 a year.
Right. So that's why
oh, sorry.
No, that's why I was like, because, you know, when I originally read this, I was like, oh, it's going to be cheaper to bring it in-house. But then when I'm thinking about it more, I think long-term, it's going to end up it's not going to save us money bringing it in-house, because I think we're going to end up having to hire full-time employees. Otherwise, things aren't going to get done, because I don't think we're going to be able to maintain that level of part-time employment.
I agree. And then we just got done talking about pensions and Opeb, and these people, once you start hiring people full-time, they're going to want benefits. So yeah, Councilman DeMonico.
Actually, yeah, scratch my last question I was about to ask, but I think, yeah, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Lucido. I think here, we basically had a good thing going before 2020, before this most recent change that kind of was messy for sure. I think the only change from what we had then was maybe the only thing up for debate is, do we just directly pay someone to cut the parks, or do we just leave that in? We had that in JJ Mish's contract, right? And then they probably were just subcontracting someone to do it. I think that seemed like the only change. I guess I don't know what we're looking for overall here, or if there was like a specific recommended motion or specific part of this we were looking at.
Councilman Monaco, if I may, the reason why I brought this up is because it was brought up to me that there was talk of possibly bringing it back in-house, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. I think that there's a lot of advantages of having it in-house. But I mean, we went to this outsourcing because it was going to save the city money, and that's going to be my biggest thing. I do agree with you, though. This last year, I feel like there's been a different level of things getting done compared to previous years. And we had issues with JJ Mish maybe not being absolutely perfect in previous years. There was definitely concerns, but I feel like this year it's even stepped back even a little bit more. And I don't know why that is. I know we changed the way we've kind of employed them, but I feel like a lot of this stuff isn't getting done to the same level as it was.
You know, one thing I'd like to address, if you look on page 3 of my report, the first, second, third, the 5th paragraph down, it talks about the amount of money we spent and the amount of hours that we've used in the first 6 months of the year. We're close to using what we originally budgeted. And so, Mrs. Lucido, I agree with you, and the Parks Commissioners would agree with you that the parks are not being maintained to the level that they were prior to June 30th, 2020, which was a lump sum contract. There's been a reduction in the amount of hours that we've used. I'm getting rid of the lawn mowing, and I'm getting rid of, obviously, the park attendants. And just in terms of park maintenance, there's been a reduction in the amount of service that we've provided, AKA the hours have been reduced.
Yeah,
Mr. Marucci, if I may, since you brought that up, on the third page, your calculations are off with the, $52 an hour, times the 1769, that number's off. And also, the,
How much is the number off?
I mean, it's only off $20, something like that, but I mean, so those, it wasn't much, but I did do some recalculation of some of the numbers.
And the
I
reason
just
for
wanted to
that,
make sure that everything else was pretty, good in there, so I just wanted to make sure. It's probably just a miss push on the calculator. Everything else was pretty straightforward.
I'm sorry, please.
Oh, go on. I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's okay. I was thinking, we're having a discussion about the maintenance of our parks and the people who service them. Have we had a conversation with the people we are paying?
yes.
Okay, and what's going on with that? That's where we need to go to. That's the discussion. What are they saying? And if they're not doing what they're saying they should do, we shouldn't pay them.
Their comment,
That's simple, right? Or no?
it is, if in this sense, if they weren't doing the actual work, their comment is, you have not allowed us the amount of hours that we believe that it takes to do the job.
Well, when they took the bid, they agreed that that was enough, correct?
Well, the bid is done on a per hour basis and was based on 6,000 hours. If you look at my report, by the end of the year, we'll use 3,538 hours, and we estimated it would take 6,000. So we're saving just short of 2,500 hours.
Yeah.
So we're asking them to do 6,000 hours worth of work in 3,500 hours.
Mr. Marucci, why is that? Like, why are we not utilizing the hours that council approved to make sure these parks are maintained the way that they're supposed to be maintained?
Prior to every month, I meet with Mary Demsich, and she provides a report, or she provides an estimated plan for the following month. Mr. Abraham would always change those hours and reduce them. And that's what we went by.
This is what I was referring to as that's part of the mess I was saying. It seemed we should just be doing the hours we wanted, and they can spread it throughout the year as they need be. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be good at, right? I guess that I think I had talked about that at a previous meeting, maybe before, but that's part of the reason I think that we had issues with the parks this year, like Mr. Murchie said.
I think Ms. Doom has something to say.
Ms. Dunn?
Yes, I certainly am aware that Mr. Abraham, had a different perspective on what it took and the hours it took for park maintenance. But I would like Mr. Palucci to weigh in at this point, because he and I have spoken about what it would look like if we took over the park's maintenance from an internal standpoint, continued with contractors for snow plowing and also for grass cutting. And he had indicated to me that he felt that an internal job with bringing it back in would certainly result in far more attractive parks and better maintenance. So I'd like him to weigh in at this point, please.
Welcome back, Mr. Palucci. I hope I said his name right. If I didn't, I apologize.
Good.
Are you back, Director?
I am back.
Okay.
We did have a discussion about this, and I do believe bringing it in-house, we will do a much better job because it's our own people. I'm going to go back to Ms. Lucido if I could, and I do agree with her in the aspect that part-timers are hard to keep. They're hard to bring in and they're hard to keep. We have 4 part-timers here that they've been here a good 4 or 5 years, and they're very reliable, and they help us with a lot of the building maintenance. So we can't spare them. We would definitely have to find some new ones and find some vehicles to put these guys in. Mm-hmm. All that being said, I'll go to the very beginning, and I do believe bringing it in-house, we can make these parks look better doing it ourselves.
What's the cost savings on that?
Well, that would be Mr. Marucci's part where he did.
I know he put that on here somewhere, but what page is that on? Mr.
There's no
Page
cost savings. It would actually cost us substantially more, and especially in the first year, because of the lack of vehicles.
Okay.
And then we're still
And-
talking about vehicle maintenance and everything else after that. And and I feel like we don't even have a good idea on what our contractor could have did if we only allowed them to service the parks for 3,500 hours when we approved them for 6,000 hours. Like we don't even know what level we would be at if we would have approved all of their hours that that council did approve for them to use.
If I may, we also discussed that at 6,000 hours, we are being charged $52 an hour. And so to utilize $52 an hour for 6,000 hours, we would most likely be able to, maybe not the first year, it might be a little expensive, but we certainly would be able to have help at a much lower rate, which then would offset the cost of purchasing some additional vehicles. Am I right, Mr. Palucci?
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
If you spread those vehicles over X amount of years, yes.
Okay.
If I may also, Ms. Doom, the DDA is currently paying for their 20 hours a week, $54,000. And if we were to bring it in-house, it would be just under 18,000. Again, the cost, that's only 20 hours a week, a cost that could be split with the city.
Good evening, Ms. Holman.
Good
So,
evening, Mayor.
Madam Mayor, if I may really quick. So right now it's $312,000 a year for the 6,000 hours. That's if we use all 6,000. And with hiring all part-time employees, like Mr. Marucci proposed to us, it was $289,000 a year. So that's a difference of $23,000. Now, even if we purchase vehicles on a 10-year plan, every 10 years we purchase new vehicles for these employees, we're still looking at, that's an additional $40,000 per year in added cost. So it would still be more because that's going to bring us up to $63,000. So, I mean, I think it's still going to be more money than trying, I don't know, like I said, just to see where we're at. I don't want to keep, I mean, I love the idea of having it in-house. I do. My biggest concern, like I said, is just we keep adding new new positions, and we keep adding all these costs. And if we go through another recession, then we're going to be scrambling to eliminate, we're going to be laying off all these people and then looking for a contractor again. I don't want to get stuck in that situation.
I think my one point.
I would think that, excuse me, I would think that instead of, I mean, it's so many ways to do bids. I know we look at the bidding price and we look at what they can do as a contractor. And I think we should, I think was it RFP, RFQ? One of those, I think we should, if that is the biggest problem that we're having is their work and they give us an amazing price, maybe we just need to do it based on their work and not the price when it comes to that. Because obviously we keep getting the same bidders who keep winning, and you guys aren't somewhat satisfied with the work that they're doing. So maybe, and that's where I'm thinking about going towards that, have a conversation, either give them more hours to finish the work that they need to do. Go back, council go back, give them the hours that they ask for, that they need, or go back to the drawing board. Because it is going to be cheaper to contract out, but just because you get the lowest bidder doesn't mean you're going to always get the best work. So any more discussion on this? I mean, we can always go back and get the numbers, but I don't think all the numbers are there.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
So my understanding is right now with the contract that we have with JJ, it's $52 an hour with what we have on the books right now. And for the services that they render, with us doing it in-house, there wasn't anyone that we were paying $52 an hour. The foreman or the, what was it, the
Assistant supervisor.
system supervisor was gonna be the only one that was gonna make like 63, 68, something like that. But everyone, I'm sorry,
6930.
69.30. But everyone else seems to be making normal wages. And to pay across the board $52 per every single employee that they have, to me, that's kind of outrageous. I mean, even though we would have to buy vehicles and we would have to, you know, do the upfront cost of the vehicles, from what I read in here, our team of people at the DPW services will be servicing the vehicles. Am I correct? Okay. And so they're already on the clock. They will be servicing the vehicles. There'll be newer vehicles. And we would save money in the loan. And it wouldn't be a real long term. It would be a short term. The first year would be heavy upfront costs. But by the second year, third year, fourth year, we would definitely save money.
Miss Moore, if I may.
Yes. Yes.
One thing about the $52 an hour that we have to take into consideration, though, is when we put it out to bid, we put it out to bid kind of weird. That's paying for their supervisors and their laborers cost and their trucks and their equipment. Like, that's a price that we're paying them to utilize this whole package. So they're not actually probably paying their employees $52 an hour to come out here, because they have supervisors and people that have to do the billing to the city, you know what I'm saying, and things like that are these overhead costs that are also included in that rate. So it's not really quite $52 an hour, but we're not taking that into consideration. Like, there's still like equipment and things that we're also gonna have to buy on top of trucks to bring it back in house that they would already do, like power washers and things like that they use to, you know, maintain, you know, different parts of the park.
From my understanding, we're not going to change out the lawn and we're not going to change out the snow. So we wouldn't have to buy that much more equipment. To what I read, there was some miscellaneous to buy, but it wasn't that much, because we wouldn't be doing the lawn care and we wouldn't be doing the snow removal. We'll just be doing mostly park attendants, cleaning, taking garbage out, maintaining the tables and stuff. But you need a screwdriver and some pieces of wood. I mean, we would actually save money in the long run.
So my first question, I guess, would be is how long is their contract for right now?
I believe it's 5 years.
So they're in a 5-year contract. Then we don't even really need to really discuss if we're bringing this back, because we just signed the contract last year. I think right now, moving forward, maybe we need to have the discussion more about making sure they have the ample amount of hours to be able to maintain the parks to the standard that we expect, and not, you know, slashing them. I think that's more of the discussion we need to have right now, because if we can't, I don't want to get out of the contract if we're already in a 5-year contract. I don't know how the rest of council would feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should get out of the contract, but we don't have that contract in front of us, and I don't want to do that tonight. I want to get the contract and read over it and see what they're asking. So I would like to come back. We can even bring this back up the next meeting if you like, because then we have to get that contract and see what they were asking us. I don't think we have all that in front of us. What they need from us, how many additional hours what do you think?
Well, when they gave us the RFP, I mean, they asked it was for 6,000 hours. We're just not allowing them to utilize the 6,000 hours that they asked for. So that's my concern. That council approved 6,000 hours. They asked for 6,000 hours, and now we're not giving them the 6,000 hours. That's where my concern comes in.
Then they're gonna want more money, correct? Isn't that what additional money we have to?
It's the money that the council already approved to pay them.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I don't have a lot to say about this. I guess I just scratching my head. If the council approved 6,000 hours to make everything look really nice, and we're not allowing them to use the 6,000 hours, I don't understand why not. I'm missing something. I'm missing, I don't know what it is. We're talking about doing it in-house when in fact we approved 6,000 hours and we're not allowing 6,000 hours. What would happen to all the beautiful parks if we did have them use 6,000 hours? We wouldn't be sitting here complaining that they don't look good.
Right, that's true. Mr. Palucci, is there, I mean, can we just move forward since it's already approved that they utilize all of the hours needed to finish the job? I don't know why they wasn't in the beginning.
Yes, we can definitely start heading in that direction. I mean,
Okay.
I'm glad it's still up for discussion because I do feel that in-house, we will be able to do a great job. Again, our biggest dilemma would just be getting that many part-timers.
Right.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I think when it's time to renew that contract, I would definitely be open to having that discussion with even maybe more details on bringing it in-house when that contract's, up.
I would like to be proactive and seeing what that cost look like. If the cost is cheaper, we might, I'm not saying get out of a contract, but I would like to see the numbers. From the 5 years, doing it ourselves. I know the first year would be heavy, how the second, third, do a 5 year. 5 year analysis on how that looks. If we did it on our own with the cost of the cars, and once we own the cars, we don't have to pay that cost the next year, just the upkeep. Going by what the director Palucci is saying, if that's better for the city, and I see a lot of council feels that is better, I would just like to see the numbers. That's all I ask for, the numbers for a 5 year analysis on how that looks compared to what we're doing now. Because I do feel like, people who, I'm not gonna say, but I just feel like sometimes when you in-house, some things are done differently than our house. I mean, I'm saying our house doesn't do a good job too, but you know where I'm going with that. But we're just gonna utilize what we agreed upon, let them utilize the hours that we agreed upon in the contract, and let's start from there. And hopefully we can look at in the future how it looks if we do it in-house, the finances. I think the director can work with you on that, Mr. Palucci, on the finance director on cars, and is enterprise a way we can use in saving and leasing those cars. It's just different ideas and how we can save money on cars and doing things in-house and saving money and having people keep their jobs, not hiring them and then they have to leave in the next couple of years too. How that looks.
Maybe a couple things I'd like to just insert. One is the contract with JJ Mish that we had last year, and for the previous 5 years, was $440,000.
Okay.
And other things that are also included in, we call it parks maintenance, but there are several other things that do take hours away from the parks that were included in the base bid with parks with JJ Mish before, but also included in this 6,000 hours. And that is maintenance of all the median islands on Kelly Road and Gratiot. And there's over 30 islands which have flowers in them. And I've been out to each one of them. Some of them are over 100 feet long. So just keep that in mind. But it's also maintenance of the City Hall parking lot, Police Department parking lot, the Fire Department parking lot, the library parking lot. And there are 3 outlots, Collinson, Moak, and there's one at the south end. I can't recall it right now. It requires them to go there, pick up trash, pull weeds, or whatever the case may be. So that's what their old contract included, and that's also included in the new contract. So the 6,000 hours isn't pure parks, but there surely is, like I said, we're on track now to use approximately 2,500 hours less than what was budgeted for all of those services.
Current contract ends November 15th, 2023.
Okay, so it's quicker than I thought.
For parks maintenance.
Okay. So it was a 3-year contract.
And you know what? I'm gonna make this comment and we can move on. Customer service is this. Whether I do a contract and I say I'm gonna do something, if the work doesn't look good, I'm gonna do it anyway. That's just good customer service. If it's, even though I didn't write it in the contract, if I know it's gonna make the job look better, I'm gonna do it anyway. And I think a lot of things has gone. A lot of people say, well, this is what I signed up for. If it looks bad, this is what I signed up for. If it looks bad and your name is on it, make it look good because your name is on it. So any other discussion on parks discussion? I think we agreed that to give them the excessive hours that were in the contract. And then to see in the future how doing in-house looks. You guys ready to move on?
Yes.
Anybody else want to move
Yeah,
on?
let's go.
I don't think we need a vote on that because it's already contract and, voted on.
I agree.
Okay, sounds good. Item E, council pre-budget discussion of budget. We are going to go with the city manager, Ms. Doom.
Thank you. Mr. Blum is going to give the council a quick overview of the pre-budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am I? Okay. Yeah, we're still getting it finalized, trying to get things wrapped up here. The initial numbers for general fund is a use of fund balance of about $1.7 million. That's a huge number, but I mean, part of it is what we discussed earlier with pension and Opeb going up. About half of it is because of that. We knew this was coming, and we've been trying to work on fixing it, but yeah, it's going to be a huge number. I know the one thing council's interested in is water sewer rates. Right now, it looks like about a 4.5% increase. There's really not much else. I mean, we got major streets, local streets, all that. They're in fine shape. Really, it's the general fund and water sewer that are the big ones. That's about really all the highlights I have for right now. And we're going to wrap it up here within the next week and get the package ready for the April 6th meeting. But I don't know if council has any specific questions. I'll see if I can answer them.
Council?
No, I don't really have any questions. Originally I wanted to have this on the agenda because, when it comes time to do the budget, I want to make sure that, like, if we had any suggestions on something that we might want to see in the budget, that maybe we could, let administration know now instead of waiting until we have the proposed budget in front of us. And, because they work on this budget, for months. So just to kind of give them a heads up. But I mean, there's nothing specifically that I have in mind. I know in the past, sometimes it makes our budget sessions a little bit longer. So just to
One thing I just thought of is we have $90,000 in parks for capital, nothing specific. The Parks Commission has a list of items. Their year one list is about 170,000. So there's a discrepancy there. But like I said, we had the almost $1.7 million deficit. So we weren't overly inclined to add a whole bunch more there.
Yeah, Mr. Blum, how much did we spend in parks last year?
Well, most of it was on the memorial concession. So it's
budgeted in previous years, not last year.
It's going to end up being over $500,000 for the current fiscal year.
Yeah.
If I could comment.
Councilman DeMonico.
Yeah, I guess even for these special meetings, I guess in the future, it'd be helpful to have the little summary page so we know who's reviewing something or who requested a certain item on the agenda. But yeah, and I certainly, I don't want to have a lengthy discussion right now, but I thought we were just pitching a couple maybe new ideas and just a couple quick things that I was going to maybe pitch, and something that's like going on these days is like we talked about the PD. What that was probably 3-4 hours ago now, about having maybe like social workers or something like that in the police department. The city of Livonia is doing that, maybe looking at, instead of just hiring more police officers, handling a lot of these issues by trained professionals. Like I was saying, Director Rohib, I said, like, we're visiting houses. If we're visiting a house 3 or 4 times a month, because of some sort of domestic like issue, a police officer might not be trained to help at all. We're just going to keep showing up, and so maybe we can have a discussion on that. And we discussed for like DPW putting second pipes down. I thought we talked about that in the past for the sewer system, to split the sewer system so it's not all combined. And it seemed like Commissioner Candace Miller thought that we could do that, but I swear we've talked in the past that that wasn't a good idea. So if we can discuss that for the budget. And I saw that, thank you, Mr. Paolucci, for the response on lead pipes. I see that we took a couple hundred off our list recently. And then we talked about basketball courts, I think, briefly for the parks. And then I was just interested in maybe talking if we do any like, what sorts of like employee training do we do across the city, just in various departments. I was just curious. And those are my ideas, at least I wanted to bring up tonight. I don't know if we need to, just to get in everyone's brain that I was thinking about, at least for the budget sessions, but I don't want it to be March 24th before we're done tonight.
Councilman DeMonico, really quick, I will say that in the Parks Commission's list, there was a basketball court for this year, and then the rest of it was all like safety concerns that they have in the different parks. So that was like the only project they actually did have on that list, with the 170,000 or whatever it was in costs. A lot of it was just replacing cement in areas that's like dangerously off underneath pavilions and things. So.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The only thing that comes to my mind right now, and when it was mentioned that the water sewer rates may go up, what did you say, 4.5? I know everybody cringed, so I guess that's what I would hope, that you take a sharp pencil and not come back with the 4.5, but maybe something lower than that, because you all know most of the calls you get are the water rates and the sewer rates. It's not anything else. That's the number one. So I would just hope that that's all. I don't have anything else.
I think that my comment would be just hiring more police officers, especially for the speeding. Get some, directly for that department to crack down on the speeding in our city, as well as I like Councilman DeMonico idea with the social worker. I don't think we should pay for a full-time one. If we can partner up with the school, like we was going to get a police officer with the school and share the cost with them, to have a safety officer in the school, community safety officer. Maybe we can share the cost with one of their social workers, and she can work in the schools and also in the community that she works in. That could be an idea. And by the time we have our budget meeting, I think I'll have some more ideas, trust me. But anyone else want to speak on this? It's just a discussion tonight, but we're going to have another discussion on the budget. So when we have the directors there at that time. Seeing no discussion anymore on this, let's move along to mayor and council report, starting with Councilman Crowley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was a great meeting. I'm 4 hours long, but it was well worth it. And I want to thank all of the department heads and all the administration who came and spoke. But other than that, everyone have a good rest of the evening, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Councilman DeMonico.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd just like everyone to, thank everyone for sticking it out tonight and coming out and presenting things. Of course, we did talk about a lot of things, but I think we did have a lot of good discussions. Unfortunately it took 4 hours, but I think it was good. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moore.
Yes. I'm always into talking about COVID-19, COVID. I'm about to get my second shot, but I wanted to, inform everyone. I know that Macomb has, been issuing out the vaccination. However, I'm always, got my ears to the ground of finding out if we can get it in other places. And the city of Detroit expanded their eligibility to anyone living or working in Detroit whose job requires them to report to their work site that's in Detroit. They put that on their website today. So if anyone that lives in Macomb County, however, works in Detroit, then they can call or to go on Detroit, Michigan.gov, and they can get a shot. So if you're on a waiting list here in Macomb, however, you work in Detroit, and that's up into the age of down to the age of 16 if you have disabilities, but 18 if you don't.
Wow.
So that's what I wanted to report.
Wow, thank you for that report. It's awesome. Councilwoman Lucido?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Really quick off of what Ms. Moore said. Yes, if anyone is looking for a vaccine, you can go on to Myers.com also, and they're doing a giant vaccination event at Ford Field over the next, I think, 6 weeks or 5 weeks. So you can go on there and you can register for that event also. It's on Myers' website, Ford Field vaccinations. So if anyone is looking for appointments, I know they have been calling people. Other than that, I have nothing else this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank everyone for coming out and listening and joining us and participating, in all administration for all of their hard work to make sure that tonight was a success and that we had all the information that we needed to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, council. Thank you, all the directors. Thank you, all the residents who stayed and listened. If you saw something that we talked about and you have an opinion about it, we have a second hearing coming up. You can email us about the fee schedule if you liked something. If you didn't like something, help us. We are here to work for you. Also, I want to, again, just tell people to go out and get their shots if they feel comfortable and wear their masks, even when you get your vaccination shots as well. I just always want to just thank the residents for coming out. We had a big turnout tonight, 20-something people come out to hear us speak and to concern. So I really appreciate that. So I really don't have too much to report, just everybody to stay safe, stay prayerful, and look out for each other. Can I get a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Support.
Motion is supported. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Bye-bye.